Chapter 1618. Muyi's request. Muyi was reading an ancient book next to Lin Feng, from time to time, glancing at Lin Feng. Uncle Muyi, are there any great scholastic masters of weapon manufacturing arts in Goldfire City? Asked Lin Feng. From what I know, there should be one, said Muyi smiling. A great scholastic masters of weapon manufacturing arts had a very high success rate when manufacturing level 8 and 9 imperial weapons. They could easily create terrifying armies all on their own. Lin Feng nodded and continued reading. Someone next to Lin Feng was reading a book, but when he saw what kind of book Lin Feng was reading, he looked at him mockingly. Lin Feng was probably a beginner in the arts of weapon manufacturing because nobody would read such books. But Lin Feng didn't care about what people thought of him. He released his godly awareness and inspected some official documents. He was just skimming them though. After some time in the pavilion, he already knew all the basics. Uncle Muyi, let's leave, said Lin Feng to Muyi. Muyi nodded, but when they reached the exit, Muyi had to give the guard a few abstruse tablets. After all, nothing was free in that world. There are always foreigners stopping here, and since so many people come, the price is not too high. The people who manage those libraries must make a lot of money, said Muyi to Lin Feng. So, what do you think? Are you interested in weapon fabrication or not? Asked Muyi smiling. I am a bit interested, but I think it could only be a hobby at best for me. If I want to have a high level in weapon fabrication, I would need to spend a lot of time and energy on it. I don't think it's something suitable for me, explained Lin Feng honestly. I think so too, said Muyi smiling. Then he continued, in the world of cultivation, no matter whether you're an alchemist or a weapon manufacturer, there's only one goal: become stronger. People fabricate weapons to become stronger, however, it always requires time. That's why most strong cultivators only want to practice cultivation. However, you're not even 30 yet and you're still carving out your own path in the great world. You must remember that in the great world, many people break through to the Xian Qi layer shortly after their birth. However, even in the great world, getting close to breaking through to the Huang Qi layer before 30 is something exceptional already. With your talent and your understanding of deployment spells, you don't really need weapons. We'll see, maybe someday I'll study weapon fabrication and immediately become a great scholastic master of weapon manufacturing arts, said Lin Feng jokingly. Lin Feng, this time I took you to Goldfire City because I have something in mind, said Muyi, gazing into the distance. He seemed pensive. Uncle Muyi, you saved my life a few times, so you can tell me what you want, and I'll do my best to help, said Lin Feng. Maybe it had something to do with Muyi having been expelled from his group. I would like you to approach someone, said Muyi. He seemed moved that Lin Feng wanted to help him. Approach someone? Indeed, my clan. I'm from the Mu clan from the northern part of Goldfire City. It's a very powerful weapon manufacturing clan, and there's a very talented young disciple who is an expert at fabricating weapons, Mu Lin Shui. She's one of the most talented young people there. She has broken through to the 9th Zun Qi layer. She's an expert at using fire and has a powerful soul strength. I hope you can get close to her, said Muyi honestly. Lin Feng looked skeptical and asked, Uncle Muyi, may I ask you what your relationship with Mu Lin Shui is? She's my daughter, said Muyi. Lin Feng looked surprised. Muyi had a daughter? And why had he been expelled from the clan? You have to ask her why I got expelled. My daughter is very talented and she's a good cultivator. She will soon become stronger than me, but the leader of the clan wants to control my daughter's future, said Muyi, smiling wryly. Uncle Muyi, why do you want me to approach Mu Lin Shui though? Asked Lin Feng. He still didn't understand. It has something to do with a grand meeting that will happen in half a year. After you get close to Lin Shui, you will know what I mean. I took you to Goldfire City for just this. I hope you don't think I'm selfish, said Muyi, sounding embarrassed. He had saved Lin Feng from Emperor Naichen back then, so that Lin Feng could help him back. Uncle Muyi, I will soon become an emperor. No matter where I am, I can become stronger, including Goldfire City. During my time here, I will get to know many weapon manufacturing masters and I will have a broader knowledge. I don't think that's so bad, said Lin Feng kindly. Thank you, Lin Feng. I'll take you to the Mu clan now, But don't tell her or anyone from the Mu clan that I told you to do this, said Mui. Then, Mui put on a mask Lin Feng had made him use in the 9 great celestial castles. Outside of the Mu clan's territory, there was a vast public square where there were big roads leading to various places. Nostalgia rushed over Mui as he looked at the familiar buildings. He didn't know how Lin Shui was doing since he left, perhaps she'd changed since then. Uncle Mui, how do I approach her? Asked Lin Feng, smiling wryly. He didn't know her, so getting close to her was easier said than done. She looks proud, but on the inside, she's kind and gentle. If she has the feeling you're a good person, it should be easy to get close to her. Of course, if she hates someone, it's another story. If anything happens, just tell me, said Mui before leaving. Then he smiled and turned around, saying, Lin Feng, if you want to have some fun with my daughter, I don't mind either. Lin Feng smiled wryly. He hadn't thought about that. He missed Meng Qing and Yu Xin. But Lin Feng couldn't protect his wives in the great world if he didn't have the strength of the Huang Qi layer, so he still had to hide them. Lin Feng looked at the territory of the Mu clan. For some reason he had a headache. He was used to doing things for himself, and he didn't really feel like getting close to someone, but since Uncle Mui asked him for a favor, he'd do his best to help. At that moment, a group of young men and women came out from the Mu clan and frowned. What are you looking at? Asked a girl in green clothes. She had a furry white cloak which made her look heroic. She was also very beautiful. I find the Mu clan's territory to be majestic, replied Lin Feng. He had recalled his qi before, so now he looked like an ordinary cultivator at the top of the Zun Qi layer. Even if that's true, don't just stand in front of the main gate, said the girl in a cold way. Then those people passed in front of Lin Feng and left. Lin Feng glanced at them one more time before he entered the Mu clan. He asked to a pedestrian, Do you know that girl's name? The pedestrian smiled and whispered, Brother, she's the jewel of the Mu clan, you can't fall in love with her. I won't, I'm just asking, said Lin Feng smiling. He figured that the pedestrian was easygoing. Hee, bro, I perfectly understand you, there's no need to justify yourself, said the pedestrian, tapping on Lin Feng's shoulders and smiling in a gentle way. Qing Ying, is that guy asking about you? Asked a young man who was smiling at Mu Qing Ying. Mu Qing Ying didn't reply. Instead, another young man smiled and said, In the northern part of the city, many men are interested in her. There's nothing surprising if he is. I'm just amused that some people overestimate themselves, said the one who had just talked before. Then they left. Lin Feng heard them clearly, for they hadn't tried to act discreet, but he didn't care. He needed to learn more about Mu Lin Shui. Chapter 1619, Mu Clan's Guards. Brother, I'll tell you something. Lin Feng turned his head around. The pedestrian was still talking to him. Do you want to know something about Miss Qing Ying? Asked that person smiling. No, I want to know more about Mu Lin Shui. Do you know anything about her? Lin Feng shook his head. When the young man heard Lin Feng, he smiled in an even gentler way. His eyes were wide open as he said, Brother, I think you shouldn't think about her too much. Miss Lin Shui is incredible. I have broken through to the 7th Zun Qi layer and you probably have the same level, but in front of Lin Shui, we're still nothing. I'm just asking, it's not like I'm having any perverted thoughts. Don't worry, bro, replied Lin Feng. Miss Lin Shui is the most beautiful girl of the Mu clan. She's only 20 years old and she's already a cultivator at the very top of the Zun Qi layer, and she's very talented at fabricating weapons. She can already create imperial weapons, which means she has become a level 1 professor, but she's studying deployment spells these days. She wants to become a level 2 professor, so she's getting ready for the big contest. That person explained slowly. Brother, she's a public figure and that's it to people like us. We can fantasize about her, but we stand no chance. Only the strongest young cultivators from the Yen clan can be a good match for her. I see, she must be incredible, said Lin Feng. He was impressed. Being a cultivator at the very top of the Zun Qi layer before being 25 was amazing, but in the great world those things didn't seem as astonishing. Lin Feng had even heard of beasts which were born with the strength of the Tian Qi layer. They didn't even need to gather experience to become Zun-level beasts, which meant they could easily turn into humans if they wanted. However, he had also heard of some incredible beasts which started very weak, but given enough time, they were even more terrifying. This seemed to be a law of the universe. If people relied on their own strength and luck to become stronger, it would bring about better results than by relying on a powerful and rich family to take pills or solely relying on a blood heritage. "Brother, what if I want to see Miss Lin Shui? What do I have to do?" asked Lin Feng. "That's difficult to say. Miss Lin Shui is studying deployment spells. Unless she comes out now, you'll have to wait to see her," replied that guy smiling. "Of course, if someone takes you in, you might see her sooner." "Let me in," asked Lin Feng. That was a good idea. Since he wanted to get close to her, he had to get into the buildings first. "Thank you for helping me," said Lin Feng smiling. The guy smiled and shook his head. "So you really want to get in? I can only wish you good luck. I'm off." After that guy left, Lin Feng didn't leave. Instead, he leant against a wall and closed his eyes. If anyone walked by, they'd probably assume he was asleep. Lin Feng finally opened his eyes after Mu Qingying and the others came back. Then, he approached Mu Qingying. Mu Qingying frowned when she saw Lin Feng. Was Lin Feng purposely preventing her from walking forwards? "Miss Qingying, can you take me inside the Mu clan?" asked Lin Feng to Mu Qingying. The people next to her frowned and released chi. One of them even shouted, "Move away." Mu Qingying waved and said, "For what reason?" Lin Feng nodded. He moved back a few steps and then knelt. Then he raised his hands and released fire strength. Mu Qingying didn't think Lin Feng wanted to attack her, so she continued walking and passed in front of him. But then a light caught her attention, making her turn her head back to see Lin Feng carving marks. Deployment spell. Mu Qingying seemed surprised. Lin Feng was still carving marks until holy marks formed. Then he shook his hand and fire emerged from the marks. Lin Feng raised his head and looked at Mu Qingying. "Since you're so honest, you can become one of my guards. Come with me," said Mu Qingying, walking towards the governmental buildings. Lin Feng lowered his head and looked at the fire marks, smiling indifferently. Then he stood up and followed Mu Qingying. "You're lucky," said one of the young men in a cold way. "A small deployment spell made of only a few holy marks is nothing. In the Mu clan, just about anyone can become a guard." Lin Feng ignored him and continued to follow Mu Qingying. After entering the governmental buildings, his deployment marks outside became wider and wider. They looked mysterious, but unfortunately, Mu Qingying didn't have the patience to watch. In the governmental buildings of the Mu clan, Mu Qingying took Lin Feng to a courtyard. There, a cultivator of the 9th Zun Qi layer came to Mu Qingying and bowed. "Miss Qingying." The Mu clan was a large clan, so there were many people who had a similar social status as Mu Qingying. "Mu Xiao, that's my new guard, please arrange everything for him," said Mu Qingying to that person, then she continued walking. Mu Xiao nodded and smiled at Lin Feng. "Not bad, Miss Qingying hasn't recruited any new guards for a while. What's your name?" "Lin Feng." "Lin Feng, this courtyard is only an outside one, but it's where her guards stay. I'm the leader of the guards, Mu Xiao. That path leads to the inner courtyard where the noble young men and women live. We are not allowed to go there without permission, you must remember that." Mu Xiao quickly explained to Lin Feng. "I became a guard," thought Lin Feng speechlessly. He wouldn't have the opportunity to meet Lin Shui that way. Now he needed to improve his social status to see her. "It seems like it'll take some time," thought Lin Feng. He didn't feel dispirited though. Now that he was in the governmental buildings, his chances of meeting Lin Shui by chance were still higher. Mu Xiao found a place to live for Lin Feng. Even though they were Mu Qingying's guards, they had nothing to do if she didn't leave the clan's territory. With that free time, Lin Feng just practiced cultivation. Sometimes he would chat with the other guards, trying to learn useful things from them. He quickly became acquainted with many of them. Besides, Lin Feng also found out that many of the guards were attracted to Mu Qingying, but nobody had confessed to her. Concerning Mu Lin Shui, they just said that she was way too incredible and that she didn't mix with people like them. Lin Feng had been in the governmental buildings for 10 days now, but he still hadn't seen Mu Lin Shui. He had seen Mu Qingying only a few times too. Lin Feng wasn't too surprised though. It was because the great tournament at Goldfire Tower would start in 6 months. Young men and women who were younger than 30 years old could participate, and if they did well, they could become disciples of the Goldfire Tower and would obtain even more weapon manufacturing techniques. According to legends, the Goldfire Tower had a great scholastic master of weapon manufacturing arts. Apart from the opportunity to become disciples of the Goldfire Tower, those who would rank amongst the best ones could also obtain incredible imperial weapons and powerful types of fire. Lin Feng still wondered why Muyi had asked him to get close to Mu Lin Shui. Was it because of the tournament? How could he help if so? Did he want Lin Feng to help Lin Shui learn deployment spells? Lin Feng was sunbathing in the courtyard and chatting with all the guards. It was relaxing, the guards were nice and didn't act arrogantly with him. Lin Feng preferred those kinds of people the most. "Miss Qing Ying is here," said Mu Xiao. Everybody stood up and looked at her, sneaking glances at her stunning figure. It wasn't that surprising that they all fantasized about her. "I have a deployment spell, try and carve it," said Mu Qing Ying, giving a book to Mu Xiao. Then, she looked at Lin Feng and said, "I know you're interested in deployment spells, which is why I took you in as a guard, but don't relax too much. If in a few months, your deployment spells are like the one from the other day, then I'll fire you. The Mu clan doesn't work with pieces of trash, and that goes double for me." With that, Qing Ying turned around and left. Mu Xiao smiled at Lin Feng and said, "Lin Feng, Miss Qing Ying asked me if you had asked us for help with your deployment spells, so I told her the truth." "That's no problem," said Lin Feng smiling. Did he need them to teach him anything? Chapter 1620, Mu Lin Shui. Mu Xiao smiled apologetically and turned to everybody else. "You all heard Miss Qing Ying, that book contains a deployment spell. Everybody can carve it into some talismans and I'll give them to Miss Qing Ying. Now, use your godly awareness to study the deployment spell." "Brother Mu Xiao, is Miss Qing Ying going to choose one of us to help her?" asked one of the guards. "Keep dreaming, even if Miss Qing Ying wanted to choose one of us to help her, it wouldn't be you. Brother Mu Xiao is much stronger than us when it comes to deployment spells, we can practically congratulate him already," said another one smiling. "Indeed, Master Mu Xiao, you'll always be with Miss Qing Ying in the future." Everybody agreed. Although they were jealous, they were happy for him. Maybe Mu Xiao would make weapons with her soon, and then someday, they'd fall in love. "Master Mu Xiao, if you marry Miss Qing Ying, your future will be incredible," said someone else jokingly. "Behave yourselves, you rascals," shouted Mu Xiao, rolling his eyes. "Everybody get over here and study the deployment spell. If you take this seriously, you all will have a chance." Mu Xiao gave the book to one of them. That guy looked excited and impatient. Everybody laughed once more before they turned their attention to the book, inspecting it with their godly awareness. Eventually, it was Lin Feng's turn. He inspected the book with his godly awareness and was surprised. That deployment spell wasn't as ordinary as he'd thought, it was quite powerful. When everybody finished inspected the book, Mu Xiao took it back and said, "All right, don't waste time, you have 3 days to carve marks, and if you do well, then maybe Miss Qing Ying will be satisfied." "Hee, Master Mu Xiao, you're daydreaming too much," said one of them jokingly, but then he turned around and left. Everybody left, but Lin Feng didn't hurry to leave. He was still enjoying the sun. "Lin Feng, why are you not leaving?" asked Mu Xiao. "Don't we have 3 days? There's no need to rush," said Lin Feng smiling. "Lin Feng, you can't act like that. The more time you have, the better results you'll have. You should use all the allocated time," said Mu Xiao in a moralizing tone. Lin Feng glanced at Mu Xiao in a deep and meaningful way, thinking that Mu Xiao hadn't acted that way during the past few days. Lin Feng smiled on the inside. That deployment spell seemed very important to Mu Xiao. Maybe the best one really would be chosen to stay with Miss Qing Ying. "All right, I'll do my best," said Lin Feng, nodding. Then he went to his room. The deployment spell was an offensive deployment spell, just like the shattering deployment spell. Thus, it wasn't very difficult for Lin Feng. He just had to cast a few small deployment spells and then they'd turn into a larger one. Lin Feng carved the spell in a short time, but he still waited the 3 days before coming out and handing over his talisman to Mu Xiao. Mu Xiao numbered the talismans and said, "I remember your numbers. If Miss Qing Ying likes your talisman, I'll tell you. Master Mu Xiao, don't fool us. Your talisman must be better than all of ours, said the crowd smiling. Mu Xiao then walked to the inner courtyards to give Miss Qing Ying the talismans. He's going to become rich. He'll stay with Miss Qing Ying all the time, and maybe they'll even share a room. Said someone smiling and looking at Mu Xiao. Imagine if it happened though, said that person laughing. He glanced at Lin Feng and tapped his shoulder. Lin Feng, I heard you begged Miss Qing Ying to allow you into the governmental buildings. How does it feel to know that Mu Xiao is going to end up with the woman of your dreams? Lin Feng scratched his head and smiled. I may be a little jealous. Ha! Everybody laughed. At that moment, Mu Xiao was already in the inner courtyard. He went to Miss Qing Ying and said, Miss, here are the talismans, have a look. Make them explode to show me how powerful they are, said Mu Xiao. All right. Mu Xiao moved back and made them explode. Mu Qing Ying looked expressionless. Those people had made progress, but it was still far from being enough. Maybe Mu Xiao's talisman would be better though. Boom. At that moment, a terrifying fire dashed to the skies, looking like a fire dragon. Mu Qing Ying was very surprised. 9 dragons, the carvings are perfect. Mu Qing Ying was stupefied, and Mu Xiao was too. 9 dragons? How was that possible? That deployment spell. Mu Xiao, you've made progress. Now you can help me, said Mu Qing Ying to Mu Xiao, who had just come back to his senses. Mu Xiao frowned and looked at Mu Qing Ying. What's wrong? Asked Mu Qing Ying. Nothing, replied Mu Xiao. He had many thoughts when he looked at her. His heart was pounding as he said, It's an honor for me to help you. All right, you can move into the inner courtyards with me and live in the room next to mine. I can call you anytime that way, said Mu Qing Ying. Roger, Mississippi, said Mu Xiao nodding. He clenched his fists. There was still 1 talisman left, but he was never going to take it out because it was his talisman. Go back, pack and inform the others, said Mu Qing Ying. If you need anything, just call me. Mu Xiao went back to his room, but he looked strange. People in the outside courtyard were waiting for him. When they saw him come back, they smiled and asked, Master Mu Xiao, how did it go? Practice hard, I may not be here to help you anymore in the future, said Mu Xiao smiling. Everybody smiled. Master Mu Xiao, don't forget about us in the future. Good luck. Everybody congratulated him, even though they were jealous. Lin Feng looked surprised, but he immediately understood what was going on. He smiled indifferently when Mu Xiao looked at him. Lin Feng, Miss Qing Ying said you're quite good. You should continue with your efforts. I will, said Lin Feng nodding. Then, Mu Xiao left and packed his stuff. He was going to move to the inner courtyard. Lin Feng was still waiting for an opportunity. Some months passed, and Mu Xiao came to visit them occasionally. At that moment, Mu Qing Ying was in a courtyard. She stretched her back, making her breasts look even perkier. Mu Xiao was drooling, but when Miss Qing Ying looked at him, he immediately looked elsewhere. Mu Xiao, you must be tired too, but there's something I still want to talk to you about. Your deployment spells are not as good as before. You need to start making perfect deployment spells like that one day, said Mu Qing Ying in a grave and solemn way. I understand, said Mu Xiao nodding. Miss, I want to tell you something. Tell me, said Mu Qing Ying. On that day, I checked everybody's deployment spells, and although Lin Feng begged you to join us, he's still too weak. His deployment spells are really bad, and he's not interested in learning. I think we should expel him, said Mu Xiao. Mu Qing Ying remained silent and then nodded. We don't need to keep any trash here. I'll take care of it. Mu Xiao turned around and got ready to leave. Qing Ying, said a voice in the distance. It was a beautiful woman. She had beautiful long hair, beautiful eyes. She was slim. Miss Lin Shui, said Qing Ying smiling at her. Lin Shui, how come you're here? I need one of your guards, said Mu Lin Shui. Mu Qing Ying glanced at her and said, You should have asked the clan to help you with that. You always rely on yourself after all. Chapter 1621. I'll help you, I'm used to it, said Mu Lin Shui. I know how talented you're though. My guards can't help you, said Mu Qing Ying. Actually, Mu Lin Shui was right. Nobody could really help her. She didn't really need guards, but she was getting ready for the tournament, so she needed someone to give her new ideas. Let's go. You just can't choose Mu Xiao. He'll be turning 30 this year and he'll be helping me at the tournament. You can choose anyone else though, said Mu Qingying smiling. Mu Lin Shui and Mu Qingying were about the same age. However, Mu Lin Shui was much more talented and even more beautiful. She admired Mu Lin Shui. I understand, said Mu Lin Shui nodding. Since Mu Qingying wanted Mu Xiao for herself, Mu Lin Shui wasn't going to choose him. Mu Xiao listened to them and then watched them leave. Mu Qingying was beautiful, but Mu Lin Shui was even more beautiful. Two beautiful girls together, side by side, what a scene. They arrived in the outer courtyard and called the guards. Mu Qingying smiled at Mu Lin Shui and said, Lin Shui, these are all my guards. Mu Lin Shui. Lin Feng looked at Mu Lin Shui, immediately thinking that she was beautiful. She had perfect breasts, but she still looked pure and innocent. The guards didn't even dare look at her. Mu Lin Shui looked at Lin Feng, thinking that he looked handsome and unfathomable. It seemed like he had been through a lot. That was the reason why she immediately took note of him. The others didn't dare look at her, but Lin Feng did. Not only did he just look at her, he continued looking at her in a calm way, as if he didn't seem scared. She looks like Mu Yun, thought Lin Feng. How would Mu Lin Shui react if she knew what he was thinking? Lin Shui, whom do you want? Asked Mu Qingying. The crowd looked nervous. Mu Lin Shui didn't have a single guard, so the one she chose was probably going to stay with her all the time. Just thinking about it made them all feel excited. Lin Feng hoped he would become her guard. That would be the opportunity he had been waiting for. Miss Lin Shui, I would like to become your guard, said Lin Feng. He had to act bold now, otherwise, she might choose one of the others. Mu Qingying looked at Lin Feng. She looked furious as said, Mu Xiao said he wanted you to leave the clan just a few minutes ago. You only joined the clan for me and now you want to follow Lin Shui. You must be dreaming. You won't become Lin Shui's guard. The Mu clan doesn't need such trash. Lin Feng knew what she meant. He should have become Mu Qingying's guard, but he hadn't tried because he wasn't interested. When Mu Xiao saw that Lin Feng was looking at him, he turned his head. He wanted to expel Lin Feng on his own to avoid any trouble. Lin Feng, you're not a bad deployment spellcaster, but you don't make any efforts. I told Miss Qingying you should leave, so please do, said Mu Xiao to Lin Feng. Lin Feng looked at him in a cold way. He was starting to get upset. Then he looked at Mu Lin Shui again and said, Miss Lin Shui, I would like to become your guard. How audacious, said Mu Qingying. Back then you begged me to join the Mu clan's government, and I gave you a chance. Now you're just trying to fool Lin Shui in the same way. Qingying, I just need an assistant, not someone to help me with deployment spells. Since you want him to leave, it's perfect, I can take him with me without bothering you, said Mu Lin Shui. Miss Lin Shui, said Mu Qingying, he's a bad guy, he might even be a pervert. Back then he begged me to join the government. He can't do anything to me, said Mu Lin Shui. All right, said Mu Qingying nodding. She didn't insist on it, she just glanced at Lin Feng in a cold way and said, you better behave yourself. I'm off, said Mu Lin Shui, nodding at Mu Qingying. Then she looked at Lin Feng and said, let's go. Lin Feng started walking, but when he passed next to Mu Qingying he stopped for a few seconds and whispered, I never joined the Mu clan for you. Then he followed Mu Lin Shui away. Mu Qingying repeated, you didn't join for me? I see, you wanted to punch above your weight. Lin Feng ignored her. His goal was Mu Lin Shui and he was finally getting there now. Mu Lin Shui took Lin Feng to her own inner courtyard. Each noble disciple from the Mu clan had their own courtyard. Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui then immediately went to her laboratory where she fabricated weapons. The room was gigantic. A gigantic cauldron stood out the most, though it looked different from the cauldrons alchemists used. That one was more like an oven in that it could shut. There were several tools on that oven. A hammer, fire tongs were amongst those Lin Feng was familiar with. Why did you want to become my guard? Asked Mu Lin Shui to Lin Feng. She had the feeling that Lin Feng wasn't someone that was easy to understand. At least, she didn't think that he looked like a piece of trash like Mu Qingying said. I didn't want to become your guard, I wanted to help you, said Lin Feng calmly. Mu Lin Shui looked surprised. Even if she thought Lin Feng didn't look like trash, she wouldn't have thought he'd say such a thing. People who were better than her at fabricating weapons could be counted with just one hand, and those people were preparing the tournament, so they couldn't help her. "How can you help me?" asked Mu Lin Shui. She was curious. "I understand deployment spells," said Lin Feng calmly. Mu Lin Shui looked unhappy and said, "I'm like you, I'm proud, but I've never said that I understand deployment spells. Maybe we have different ways of talking, but at least the deployment spells I understand can help you," said Lin Feng. Mu Lin Shui looked excited now. She just said, "All right, since it's that way, I'll give you one opportunity to prove it. Go out and get some materials for me, use this ring to buy some things. When you come back, we'll start fabricating weapons." Chapter 1622, Fabricating Imperial Weapons. Lin Feng went to town, and when he came back, Mu Lin Shui was right where he left her. The only difference now was that it was scorching hot inside. Inside the oven, there was a fire with 5 colors, and Mu Lin Shui was controlling that fire. Lin Feng watched her, studying how she moved her fingers in the fire. Mu Lin Shui possessed a bestial-like fire. It was wild and fierce as it continued to grow hotter. "Did you get everything?" asked Mu Lin Shui to Lin Shui without turning her head. "I have everything," said Lin Feng, throwing the ring at Mu Lin Shui. She wasn't facing Lin Feng, but when the ring neared her back, she still managed to catch it from behind. In a flash, all the items appeared outside of the ring. "Look at that deployment spell, and when the right time comes, carve the marks. I hope I won't be too disappointed, otherwise, you won't have a second chance," said Mu Lin Shui calmly. It was exhausting for her to prepare the items. Besides, the materials she used were very expensive, so if the deployment spell failed, she wouldn't be very happy with Lin Feng. With that, she threw a book at him. "I will do my best." Lin Feng nodded and took the book. He inspected it with his godly awareness and studied the marks. Very quickly, he reopened his eyes. A short time after, Mu Lin Shui put more materials in the fire. There were many techniques to fabricate weapons, and weapon manufacturers could either use existing techniques or make up new ones. However, relying on one's own techniques was very difficult because it was difficult to know what items and materials to use. It was a process of trying repeatedly before succeeding. Most masters didn't try that. They usually tried to modify an existing technique. "Sword," thought Lin Feng. The weapon still didn't have a shape, but he could tell that it was going to be very sharp. "Carve the marks," shouted Mu Lin Shui suddenly. Lin Feng immediately moved to the cauldron, and even though it was scorching hot, Lin Feng practiced fire cultivation, so it didn't affect him. Lin Feng released earth abstruse energy to the carved marks, which were incredibly clear. They almost looked alive. "Earth abstruse strength. I can change the shape of the weapon based on the energy used to carve the formations. With earth energy, we can make a heavy sword," thought Mu Lin Shui. Mu Lin Shui couldn't wait to see what kind of weapon they'd managed to make. Lin Feng kept shaking his hands. Each time, the marks etched themselves onto the weapon. Progressively, heavy energies weighed down on the air around them. Mu Lin Shui started looking at it in a strange way. "He modified the deployment spell I gave him and is using his own marks," thought Mu Lin Shui. She was wondering whether Lin Feng had thought of modifying it when he read the book or if he changed it on the spot. Changing the deployment spell could have dramatic consequences. Although it was more complicated, if Lin Feng really changed it on the spot, then he really might have a chance at helping her. More and more marks appeared. Now destructive energies were invading the space around them. Mu Lin Shui looked pensive. She was wondering what kind of weapon would be suitable for that deployment spell. Mu Lin Shui initially wanted to make a Peerless holy weapon, thinking it would be easier for Lin Feng, but now her plans were changing. After Lin Feng changed the deployment spell, she had decided to change the weapon, maybe making it into an imperial weapon. Lin Feng continued carving marks, eventually carving the last one. A terrifying strength filled the room after the last mark was drawn. If Lin Feng had carved those onto a talisman, it would have been enough to threaten a low-level emperor. With Mu Lin Shui's experience, that weapon could be terrifying. After Lin Feng carved the marks, Mu Lin Shui nodded at him with a smile which said that she acknowledged Lin Feng's talent. Mu Lin Shui added some materials in the fire, and after that, she used a gigantic hammer to give it the better shape. Ding! A loud clanking sound resounded each time her hammer fell. Lin Feng smiled. He thought that a beautiful woman using a hammer was a funny scene. "I'll help you," said Lin Feng to Mu Lin Shui. "Lin Feng, that's the dancing wind hammer technique. It's not suitable for you. I'll help you learn another hammer technique, but no matter which hammer technique you use, the goal is to make the weapon perfect. Just watch and learn," said Mu Lin Shui, still hammering the weapon. Lin Feng nodded, accepting that he had no experience. He agreed that the hammer technique wasn't suitable for him. How interesting, thought Lin Feng. He was captivated, but not by her body, but by her movements. Each movement was important, contributing to the overall strength and precision of each strike. Even with her skill, the chances of failing were quite high. An average level 1 professor had a 70% chance of failing while making imperial weapons. When she makes weapons, she's controlling the intensity of the fire as she slowly defines the shape of the weapon, thought Lin Feng. Now it made more sense as to why a powerful soul and fire was required. After hammering the weapon for what seemed to be 1,000,000 times, a strong wind blew throughout the room. It didn't affect Lin Feng though. He was still focused on what was going on. He wanted to make sure that the weapon was perfect. "The weapon is almost finished," said Mu Lin Shui to Lin Feng. The fire became even hotter at this point. Lin Feng looked at her face, noticing that they were both covered in sweat. It's much more complicated than concocting pills, but weapons serve a different purpose in battles as they can help cultivators make up for their deficiencies, thought Lin Feng. Time passed and then the sword started shaking, even the room around them started shaking. Mu Lin Shui didn't stop focusing, they were only one step away now. "Rise," said Mu Lin Shui, raising her head. "Condense." Mu Lin Shui shook her hands and the fire marks flew throughout the weapon. The scene was incredible. It was the first time Lin Feng had seen something like that. Finally, the sword rose up and whistled. It seemed heavy, destructive, and sharp. "We did it," said Mu Lin Shui, smiling in a resplendent way. She looked at Lin Feng and said, "We did it, it's a level 1 imperial weapon. You should clean yourself up." Lin Feng said, glancing at her clothes. She wasn't wearing much, and since she was drenched in sweat, anyone could see through her clothes. Lin Feng was getting turned on. Mu Lin Shui looked embarrassed. Usually, she was always alone when she fabricated weapons, so this was the first time a man was with her when she looked like this. "I'll go and change my clothes," said Mu Lin Shui, leaving hastily as if she had forgotten about the imperial weapon. "Lin Shui made another imperial weapon," said an old man at that moment. He looked pleasantly surprised. Even though Mu Lin Shui was a level 1 professor, making an imperial weapon still wasn't easy for her. At that moment, Mu Qingying was in the air when she saw the imperial weapon. She thought to herself, "I wonder when I'll be able to make imperial weapons." Lin Shui is too talented. She only relies on herself and still manages to make such powerful weapons. Chapter 1623. Working in team. Mu Lin Shui changed clothes and came back. She now looked clean and beautiful. She smiled at Lin Feng and said, "Let's go and see." Then they both rose up in the air and looked at the sword. "Come," said Mu Lin Shui to the sword. In a flash, it flew to her hand, whistling as it went. "Bzzz, bzzz, bzzz." The sword kept shaking, then it left Mu Lin Shui's hand and moved to Lin Feng. It turned around him and whistled even louder. Lin Feng looked surprised, noticing that the sword possessed a soul. Lin Shui and Lin Feng had made it together, so they could easily modify it if they wanted to. "Lin Shui, you became even better at making weapons," said a middle-aged man who walking to Mu Lin Shui while smiling. "Uncle," said Mu Lin Shui, nodding at the middle-aged man. She didn't say too much. "If you continue improving like this, you'll soon be able to make level 2 imperial weapons. But right now, you're still not stronger than Yan Feng, especially comparing your fires. Besides, he also has someone to help him with deployment spells. He can make level 3 imperial weapons, so if you can, I hope you'll participate in the tournament in a team with him. You'd be a perfect match," said the middle-aged man. However, Mu Lin Shui frowned and said, I'm a member of the Mu clan. Why would I join with Yen Feng? He's a good boy for you, Lin Shui. You want me to join the Yen clan and help him? You only want him to be my master, said Mu Lin Shui in a cold way. Why don't you make your daughter leave the clan instead? The middle-aged man groaned coldly and said, when the tournament finishes, if you lose, you'll have to marry him no matter what. After I leave, your daughter will get the best education. Am I right? Said Mu Lin Shui. That's enough, said an old man. He glanced at them firmly, then he said to Mu Lin Shui, Lin Shui, you know about Sword Mountain and the Yen clan. They fabricate weapons exclusively for Sword Mountain, so they can very easily oppress our clan. Yen Feng likes you, so there's a lot of pressure on our shoulders to wed you. I know, Grandpa, but you know how evil that guy is, replied Mu Lin Shui. But if I don't give the Yen clan face, they will oppress us even more, because they will have an excuse. Of course, the clan is trying to help you, which is why we've determined some rules. If you win, you can do whatever you want, and the clan will make great efforts to make you become even stronger. There are only a few months left before the tournament, so we need to try and find someone who can help you with deployment spells. I understand, thank you for showing your willingness to help, replied Mu Lin Shui bowing. But you don't need to find a deployment spellcaster to help me, I'm good on my own. You're so stubborn, said the old man smiling wryly. Since that's what you want, I won't insist, said Mu Lin Shui, handing a book over to Lin Feng. Then she smiled in a gentle way. Of course, said Lin Feng smiling. He was willing to help her. Lin Feng practiced the hammer technique for 3 days before he started helping Mu Lin Shui refine her weapons again. A month later, inside the lab, deployment mark strength filled the room. Each time Lin Feng hammered down, loud banging sounds resounded, fires jumping in every direction. Lin Feng was finally getting used to it. Mu Lin Shui controlled the fire and the materials which were burnt. In that month, Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui's weapons were becoming better and better. They didn't even need to talk to each other anymore, their teamwork was perfectly coordinated. Fire rise, said Mu Lin Shui. Fire moved in every direction, magma gushing out of the cauldron. Lin Feng continued hammering the weapon into something flat and extremely heavy. Finally, once they finished, an incandescent sword appeared in front of them. Peerless holy weapon, almost an imperial weapon. It's just because we used ordinary materials, Mu Lin Shui said, smiling happily. Then she looked at Lin Feng. They worked well together, they could even make peerless holy weapons as they wished, as well as imperial weapons if they used better materials. Thank you, Lin Feng. Mu Lin Shui said to Lin Feng. He was covered in sweat, so she stretched out her hand and wiped his sweat away with her sleeve. Lin Feng was embarrassed. I told you I came to the Mu clan for you, said Lin Feng smiling. I'll continue using you as my slave then, said Mu Lin Shui, smiling teasingly. They were getting closer every day, they were joking all the time now. As you wish, said Lin Feng shrugging. Let's go get some better materials, we need to use our full strength next time, said Mu Lin Shui smiling. She wanted to see if they could make level 2 imperial weapons now. Chapter 1624. Yen Feng Lin Feng smiled and nodded, then they went to town to buy the materials. Miss Lin Shui. Mu Qingying was in Mu Lin Shui's inner courtyard and was smiling. Her courtyard was next to Mu Lin Shui's, so it wasn't surprising to see her. Miss Lin Shui, are you going to buy materials yourself? Asked Mu Qingying. Indeed. I'm going to buy a few materials, and I can't waste time, said Mu Lin Shui honestly, nodding. Alright, I'm going shopping too. Let's go together, said Mu Qingying. Alright, why not? Said Mu Lin Shui. Mu Qingying looked at Mu Shao and said, Mu Shao, come with me. Roger, Qingying, said Mu Shao. Lin Feng looked surprised. Mu Shao was now calling Qingying by her name, they had become close too, just like him and Mu Lin Shui. Even though Mu Shao had plotted against Lin Feng, he only ended up helping him. The four of them walked out. Mu Qingying was chatting with Mu Lin Shui while Lin Feng and Mu Shao were walking behind them. Even though Mu Qingying didn't like Lin Feng, she didn't say anything. Congratulations, whispered Lin Feng to Mu Shao. Mu Shao frowned and looked at Lin Feng in a cold way. He was furious. He had hoped Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui weren't too close. Lin Feng, you're too lucky. Surprisingly, Miss Lin Shui lets you stay with her. You better enjoy it, said Mu Xiao, insisting on the last words. I will do my best, said Lin Feng, smiling. The four of them left the governmental buildings of the Mu clan, and as soon as they did, a group of people appeared in the sky above them. They were looking at Mu Lin Shui and the others. Yan Feng. Mu Qingying was surprised. Mu Lin Shui looked at them in a cold way. Lin Shui, long time no see. I missed you so much, said Yan Feng, smiling. You're shameless, shouted Mu Lin Shui. My future wife, why are you saying I'm shameless? Asked Yan Feng. He didn't care. He felt like he had the situation under control. Who's your future wife? Shouted Mu Lin Shui. 3 more months and then we'll be married. We'll see if you dare say anything then, said Yan Feng. He glanced at Lin Feng and Mu Xiao and said, Boys should stay away from my woman, otherwise, I'll have to teach you a lesson. You're insane, shouted Mu Lin Shui furiously. But Yan Feng smiled and said, Lin Shui, your people are my people. Yan Feng then left with his friends. Mu Xiao looked upset. He felt humiliated even. Yan Feng was extremely talented. As expected, someone like Mu Xiao couldn't become friends with someone like Mu Lin Shui. It was his goal to marry Mu Qingying anyways, so it didn't matter. How arrogant and shameless, whispered Lin Feng. However, it wasn't that much a surprise that he was so arrogant. He was from a clan who was stronger than the Mu clan, and he was a disciple of Sword Mountain. Mu Lin Shui's heart was pounding. She was furious. But she quickly tried to control herself. Everything will be all right. Suddenly, terrifying abstruse energies filled the space around them. Lin Feng moved back with incredible speed. Qingying was surprised. That bastard was escaping. Lin Feng suddenly jumped forwards and a gigantic stone enveloped him with Mu Xiao and the 2 attackers. Now, everybody around them couldn't see them. His eyes suddenly became pitch black as he condensed demon and death abstruse energies. The one who was attacking Lin Feng started shaking after he saw Lin Feng's eyes. Die! When Mu Xiao saw that the cultivator attacking them had stopped moving, he released his own fire energies. However, his fire didn't affect the cultivator too much. Lin Feng's death energy had already caused a lot of damage. Lin Shui doesn't want me to show how strong I am, thought Lin Feng. He said to the other sword cultivator, using telepathy, Here. That person looked at Lin Feng, staring into his eyes. Then, demon, death and cursing abstruse energies started corrupting his body. After having broken through to the 9th Zunqi layer, Lin Feng's best abstruse energies were demon, earth, death and cursing abstruse energies. Few people could resist him who were at the same level. Lin Feng's attack allowed Mu Xiao to use his fire. After a short time, the stone disappeared, and the 2 sword cultivators had already died, burnt alive by Mu Xiao's fire. It's almost a pity to cast such an incredible defensive deployment spell on this armor. I wonder if it'll be perfect for the armor though, thought Mu Lin Shui as she watched Lin Feng. It was the first time she saw Lin Feng so focused. Because he was trying harder this time, it was also taking him longer to draw the marks. Mu Lin Shui was filled with anticipation. With a great deployment spell and great materials, what would their imperial armor look like? In another courtyard, in another lab, Mu Qingying and Mu Xiao were also trying to create an imperial weapon. It was the first time they had tried. Mu Qingying was covered with sweat. Her cauldron was surrounded by a dazzling fire. Mu Xiao had just finished carving deployment marks, was now hammering away at the weapon. They were trying to make a big blade and they were almost done. Mu Qingying was nervous. She knew that if she wanted to participate in the tournament, she had to get better. It wasn't that there were a limited number of people allowed to participate, it was that the Mu clan wouldn't let people go if they weren't good enough. Otherwise, they would end up humiliating them. The blade was looking better and better. It was already starting to emit buzzing sounds. Like most people, she could only make swords and blades. She didn't have the knowledge or the power to fabricate special weapons such as scepters or ancient mirrors. Finally, the blade twinkled. It even looked bloodthirsty. Condense, said Mu Qingying. Lights rose up to the skies. piercing through the ceiling of their room. An imperial weapon. Mu Qing was pleasantly surprised. She had finally made an imperial weapon. Qing, we did it, said Mu Xiao happily. He had helped Mu Qing fabricate an imperial weapon. Even though he had initially cheated to become her personal assistant, he still worked hard to prove to her that he was worth it. He spent most of his time studying. He knew that the only way to make Qing fall in love with him was to improve his contributions. Indeed, we did it, said Mu Qing, smiling in a resplendent way. When Mu Xiao saw her resplendent smile, he slowly walked towards her and put his hands on her cheeks. It looked like he wanted to wipe the sweat from her forehead. Qing, you're really beautiful. Mu Qing shivered and suddenly her facial expression changed drastically. How shameless. Mu Xiao's facial expression suddenly changed too as he jumped backwards. Qing, Mu Xiao, you've gone too far, shouted Mu Qing. Mu Xiao's heart twitched as he said, Miss Qing, you're too beautiful, and I've liked you for so long, I'm crazy about you. I wouldn't have made such efforts if it weren't for you. I know that my social status is low, and I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry for upsetting you. I know what I have to do. Miss, take care, said Mu Xiao, slowly walking backwards. Then he turned around and left. Mu Qing was giving him a cold stare. They had already fabricated an imperial weapon and now there wasn't much time left before the tournament, so Mu Qing couldn't let him go. Stop. Mu Qing calmed down and took in a breath. Do you need me to do anything else, miss? Mu Xiao asked. You can't go, said Mu Qing. If I hadn't done that, I would have continued secretly dreaming about you, but now I made a mistake and you despise me. I can't stay. If you want to kill me, I'll understand, said Mu Xiao, lowering his head. He was trying to look like victim to force Mu Qing's hand. By now, there were many people gathered outside her lab. Mu Qing had surprisingly made an imperial weapon. Qing, you did it, said someone who was pleasantly surprised. It was Mu Qing's father. Mu Xiao, I reacted too aggressively. I don't despise you, I actually like you. Please forget about my outburst before. I went too far, so I'm sorry, said Mu Qing in a low voice. What you mean to say is that you want to be with me? Asked Mu Xiao, staring at Qing. I need some time to think about it, all right? Asked Mu Qing. I will do everything for you, I would even die for you, said Mu Xiao. Chapter 1626. Efforts. Mu Qing was confused and had mixed feelings. She hadn't thought Mu Xiao would do that, and she had never thought Mu Xiao would ever become her boyfriend. Even though she wasn't as amazing as Mu Linxue, she was still very beautiful, and she could get a much better boyfriend if she tried. However, she knew what kind of threat Mu Xiao would pose her if he left now. Let's go out and greet everyone, said Mu Qing, avoiding the topic. Then she ran towards everyone who were currently inspecting the weapon she just made. They all smiled pleasantly when they saw Mu Qing come out. Qing, congratulations. Now you're a real weapon artisan. Qing, it seems like you're going to be able to participate in the tournament. Everybody was complimenting Qing. Some people were jealous too, especially anyone who was around the same age as her. Mu Qing had made an imperial weapon, which meant she'd surely be able to make it to the tournament, meaning less opportunities for them to be qualified. Father, said Mu Qing. She was looking at a middle-aged man and smiling in a resplendent way. Qing, not bad, you're even catching up with Lin Shui. You'll certainly participate in the tournament now, said Mu Qing's father. Mu Qing almost forgot about what happened with Mu Xiao a moment before because she was so very happy. Everyone was flattering her, and she couldn't get enough of it. She had been jealous of Mu Linxue, but she just never showed it. Now, she felt like she could be treated like Mu Linxue. I really don't deserve so much praise, father. Sister Lin Shui has been making imperial weapons for a long time already, said Mu Qing smiling. You're all level 1 professors now, so it doesn't matter whether she's been doing it for a while or not, said her father. Strange sounds and a terrifying qi were coming from Mu Lin Shui's courtyard. Then her laboratory exploded, dazzling lights lighting up the night sky. With those lights, a dazzling armor appeared in the sky. Level 2 imperial weapon, The quality of it is incredible too. The crowd was astonished. Someone had made a level 2 imperial weapon. Then, two silhouettes rose up in the air. One was the most beautiful woman of the Mu clan, Mu Lin Shui. Mu Qingying's father was dumbfounded. He had just said that his daughter was as talented as Mu Lin Shui, but a few minutes later, Mu Lin Shui already proved she was more talented by creating a level 2 imperial weapon. Mu Qingying was just as stunned as her father. She initially looked happy, but now she looked dispirited. Lin Shui could already make level 2 imperial weapons. "Miss, we still have time to try and make level 2 imperial weapons," said Mu Xiao. Mu Qingying turned around and nodded. "Indeed, we still have time, so we need to try as well." More strong cultivators gathered, including many older people. First, think of what imperial weapon you want to make at the tournament, then let's see what deployment spell we need. I still need to practice and improve my deployment spells. I should mention that I didn't use my full strength for that armor. I can even do better than that, said Lin Feng to Mu Lin Shui. He knew the 3,000 great deployment spells from a great emperor. How could that be the best he had? He just needed Mu Lin Shui to know exactly what she wanted to do, and then he'd think of the deployment spell he could use. With some practice, he could figure it out before the tournament. Mu Lin Shui looked surprised. His deployment spells could be even more powerful? "Lin Feng, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart," said Mu Lin Shui smiling. "You keep thanking me," said Lin Feng smiling wryly before he joked. "Since I keep telling you not to thank me, but you continue to anyways, how should I go about asking you to stop thanking me?" Mu Lin Shui's eyes twinkled and she said, "Maybe we could have sex? Would you dare?" Lin Feng was dumbstruck. He smiled wryly and said, "I wouldn't dare. First, tell me what imperial weapon you want to make. I'll go for a walk while you decide." Mu Lin Shui looked at Lin Feng and smiled. She was thinking, "You little cutie. You came to the Mu clan just to help me, and I thought you really liked me, but now I tried to offer you sex and you ran away." She leant against the wall and daydreamed about Lin Feng. Now, she had to think of which weapon she wanted to make. Lin Feng had told her he could make even better weapons, so if she used her full strength, used the best fire, and the best materials, maybe then she would be able to make a level 3 imperial weapon. If that happened, then maybe she could win against Yan Feng. Time passed, and the date of the event was quickly approaching. There were only 7 days left before Lin Feng finally came out of his room. As the sun shone upon him, Lin Feng closed his eyes and took in a deep breath of fresh air. "Finally, you came out," said Mu Lin Shui, smiling in a cute way. "I'm done. Should we try to make a level 3 imperial weapon?" "I think it'll be easy," said Lin Feng. "No need. We should rest and save our energy before the competition," said Mu Lin Shui. Then she got closer to Lin Feng, smiled and said, "Lin Feng, my life is in your hands." Chapter 1627. Evil Scheme. Lin Feng, my life is in your hands. Lin Feng looked at her resplendent smile, then he smiled back and asked, "What kind of weapons can Yan Feng make with an assistant?" "Yan Feng can make level 2 weapons on his own. With an assistant, he might be able to make level 3 imperial weapons of higher quality," said Mu Lin Shui. She was a bit worried because everybody knew about Yan Feng's skill in the northern part of Goldfire City. He was an outstanding young man, while the Yan clan was rich and powerful, so it was no surprise that he had access to the best materials. "Level 3 imperial weapons," whispered Lin Feng. Then he caressed Mu Lin Shui's head and smiled, "Leave it to me." Mu Lin Shui rolled her eyes and walked away. She looked embarrassed, and after Lin Feng noticed, he laughed and said jokingly, "Didn't you want to have sex with me?" Mu Lin Shui grinded her teeth after she heard Lin Feng. She knew he was only getting his revenge. Both of them sat down. Lin Feng closed his eyes, letting the sun warm his body. And after a few minutes of relaxing like this, he started dreaming. Mu Lin Shui watched Lin Feng without saying anything. She was surprised, wondering what he was doing. Was he resting? Had he really joined the Mu clan just for her? Why was Lin Feng helping her? The sun gradually moved westwards, and everything became dark, but Lin Feng was still motionless. Mu Lin Shui was still not that far from him. She had calmed herself down a bit, but it'd be a lie to say she was completely at peace. In the courtyard next to hers, Mu Qingying and Mu Xiao had just succeeded in making another Peerless holy weapon. After that, Mu Qingying went to take a shower, washing away the sweat which had stained her skin from a long night's effort. Mu Xiao was near her, taking in her beautiful hair and supple breasts. Her curvy features were even more noticeable under the moonlight. Mu Xiao suddenly became very aroused, gulping down. He got closer, taking soft steps as he tried not to startle her. He was now close enough to smell her, pushing him forward even more. Mu Qingying frowned. She knew that Mu Xiao was behind her, but she didn't think he'd be this bold. Suddenly, two hands grabbed her from behind and she shouted, "Mu Xiao, what are you doing?" "Qingying, you're just too beautiful, I feel bewitched even," said Mu Xiao, firmly holding her. Mu Qingying wanted to push his hands away, but he held her firmly. Her heart started pounding. She didn't know what to do. "Mu Xiao, I want to focus on the tournament, so we'll have to wait and think about our relationship until after the tournament, all right?" asked Mu Qingying. She didn't try to push him away. She just put her hands on his hands and talked using a gentle way. Mu Xiao smiled in a cold way. After the tournament? They had already gone so far, and after the tournament she'd probably get rid of him. He didn't want to gamble that, especially if he had sex with her now. She wouldn't be able to get rid of him after the tournament. "Qingying, I love you so much, I promise I'll devote my entire life to you," said Mu Xiao, whispering in her ears. He didn't answer her question because he wanted to try his luck first. Mu Qingying bit her lips. She knew what he was thinking. If she got rid of him now, she wouldn't be able to make imperial weapons. She wouldn't even be able to participate in the tournament. Mu Qingying didn't know what to do, so Mu Xiao called her out on her hesitation. With that thinking, he held her even tighter, caressing her back. "Ow!" Mu Qingying moaned in pain. She couldn't stop him anymore. In the distance, Mu Lin Shui heard her moan and looked towards them. As she did, she saw Qingying and Mu Xiao acting very intimately. "Qingying," said Mu Lin Shui suddenly. Mu Qingying and Mu Xiao turned at the same time, both looking back at Mu Lin Shui. Lin Feng also woke up and looked in their direction. He instantly knew what was going on after he saw Qingying and Mu Xiao. He immediately stood up, knowing Mu Xiao wouldn't hesitate resorting to evil methods for his own interests. Even though Lin Feng didn't like Mu Qingying, he didn't want her to get raped. Mu Xiao was furious. Now he was regretting not taking Mu Qingying beforehand. "Miss Lin Shui, I'm off," said Mu Xiao, bowing before Lin Shui. He could do whatever he wanted with Qingying, but not with Mu Lin Shui there. Mu Lin Shui looked at him in a despising way. Then she looked at Qingying and said, "Qingying, how come you didn't see this coming?" "Miss Lin Shui, Mu Qingying didn't know how to explain. "It's my fault. Lin Feng warned me about him and I should have told you, but I thought you'd notice if something was wrong. It's not too late now though. You can't let that shameless bastard bully you anymore," said Mu Lin Shui. "Lin Feng." Mu Qingying was surprised, so she walked up to Lin Feng. Lin Feng had told Mu Lin Shui that Mu Xiao was shameless? He was way more shameless. "Sister Lin Shui, how could you trust him? Whatever Mu Xiao does, Lin Feng must be worse. Don't let him fool you." Lin Feng was speechless. "Qingying, Mu Xiao and Lin Feng can't be compared with each other," said Mu Lin Shui. "How could Mu Xiao be worse than him? I helped Lin Feng join the Mu clan, and then he flirted with you. You have to be careful." Mu Qingying was still unconvinced. Even though Mu Xiao had gone too far, he still helped her make imperial weapons. Lin Shui didn't expect Qingying to react like that. Lin Shui still wanted to say something, but Mu Qingying interjected, "Sister Lin Shui, don't worry. I know what I'm doing, and you know what you're doing. No matter what, Yan Feng is 100 times better than Lin Feng, so you won't have to worry much longer." With that, Qingying went back to her room. Mu Lin Shui looked at her and sighed, "Yan Feng?" She hadn't thought Mu Qingying would be that mean. Mu Lin Shui turned around and said, "I'm sorry she offended you." Lin Feng smiled wryly and shrugged, "I don't care. She's the only one who is going to suffer by not listening to us. I hope she'll find a solution. Let's go back now," sighed Mu Lin Shui, shaking her head. Mu Qingying went back to her room, still angry. How could Mu Lin Shui talk to her that way? Qing Ying. A short time after, Mu Xiao entered Mu Qing Ying's room and said, Qing Ying, Miss and Lin Feng went too far. Surprisingly, she keeps defending Lin Feng and she offended you. I'm alright, she said you're not as good as Lin Feng though, said Mu Qing Ying unhappily. But Mu Xiao didn't care about that, rather he walked over to her and whispered, I will always protect you and make you happy. I don't care about what other people think as long as you love me. Mu Qing Ying felt nervous, but she kind of felt happy after she heard Mu Xiao. For most women, that's exactly what they wanted to hear. Suddenly, Mu Xiao put his arms around her again and said in a gentle way, Qing Ying, I will always protect you. Qing Ying shivered. She tried to move away, but Mu Xiao held her even tighter. He thought angrily, Mu Lin Shui, if I have the opportunity, I'll get you too. Surprisingly, you dared insult me. Chapter 1628. My assistant Mu Qing Ying's face turned pale. She tried resisting, but Mu Xiao forced her into his arms. What should I do? Mu Qing Ying was confused. At that moment, she really didn't know what to think. She didn't have feelings for Mu Xiao, and she only considered him an assistant. But without Mu Xiao, she wouldn't be able to make imperial weapons and she'd lose face at the competition. How shameless! Someone shouted at that moment. Mu Xiao suddenly flung himself away from Mu Qing Ying. Mu Qing Ying was also startled, so she started running away. She looked around, but she didn't know who was talking. Qing Ying, who's that? Asked Mu Xiao, following her. I don't know, said Mu Qing Ying, shaking her head. The wind suddenly felt cold now. She looked at Mu Xiao and said, Mu Xiao, I'll forget everything that happened tonight, and you can continue being my assistant. However, if you try to touch me again, I'll get angry and I'll drop out of the tournament after letting you go. Mu Qing Ying wasn't stupid. She understood why Mu Xiao was acting that way. Someone had shouted, and it was her wake-up call. She knew that she couldn't sell her body to participate in the competition. She was more willing to give up if things were put that way. Mu Xiao remained silent and lowered his head, but secretly he was furious. Who was ruining his plan this time? Lin Feng, it must have been Lin Feng, thought Mu Xiao. After thinking about it, he raised his head and said, Miss Qing Ying, I understand, from now on I'll make sure such things won't happen again. I'll just stay with you and protect you. Mu Xiao was now pretending to be a protector. He knew that no matter what he'd say, nothing would work, so a protector was still a better status than a guard. Go and have a rest. In the future, you can't come into my room without my permission, said Mu Qing Ying in a cold way. Roger, Mississippi, said Mu Xiao, bowing. Then he went back to his room and closed the door. He felt like crying, but he was so angry that he couldn't do it. Lin Feng had ruined his dream of making his dream girl fall in love with him. It was either Lin Feng or Mu Lin Shui, however, the voice they had heard was a woman's voice. Just like Mu Xiao had guessed, the voice he had heard was Lin Feng's. They hadn't gone too far, so Lin Feng and Lin Shui had heard them after they left. Mu Qing Ying glanced around and then went back to her room. She didn't know who had shouted, but she also thought that it might have been Lin Feng. She didn't understand why he was helping her though. Qing Ying is too naive and sensitive, whispered Mu Lin Shui. You guessed right, Mu Xiao really is evil. Lin Feng smiled but said nothing. He had gone through a lot in his life, so he understood people. You've probably done such things in the past too, said Mu Lin Shui, laughing. Lin Feng rolled his eyes and then smiled at her. If you think so, I can do it to you too. Mu Lin Shui smiled teasingly and said, if you do that to me, I won't reject you like Qing Ying rejected Mu Xiao though. Lin Feng smiled wryly. She was somewhat cold to other people, but she was kind and gentle to him. She even joked with him. But thank you, Mu Lin Shui said after she saw Lin Feng looking embarrassed. Lin Feng shrugged. He didn't mind. He didn't like Mu Qing Ying, but they weren't enemies either. If Mu Lin Shui hadn't cared about Mu Qing Ying, Lin Feng wouldn't have done anything for her. She was old enough to make her own decisions after all. Good thing she came back to her senses in the end, otherwise, nobody would have been able to help her, said Mu Lin Shui. In the following days, Mu Xiao did his best to help Mu Qing Ying. They focused, and with more sweat, they made another imperial weapon. On the other hand, Lin Feng and Mu Lin Xue didn't make any weapons. They just chatted, laughed, sunbathed, and slept. Finally, it was the day of the tournament. Mu Lin Xue came out of her room, looking at Lin Feng, who was lying down in the grass with his eyes closed. She smiled and said, "Lin Feng, the clan called everyone, so we have to go." "I'm coming too?" asked Lin Feng. Even though he had spent a lot of time there, he had only stayed with Mu Qingying or Mu Lin Xue. He felt like a stranger in the Mu clan. Of course, they're going to choose the people who will participate in the tournament. "We're a team, so we have to go," said Mu Lin Xue, smiling. Lin Feng smiled wryly and stood up. Once again, many people were going to pay attention to him. Mu Lin Xue had a higher status in the clan, so him appearing with her might cause some issues. "I have no choice then," said Lin Feng indifferently. "You almost never go out, instead you work so hard to help me," said Mu Lin Xue in a gentle way. Lin Feng's deployment spells were incredibly powerful, and he kept helping her without anyone else knowing. She almost felt guilty. She knew that if she raised these concerns he'd just say, "I don't mind being discreet." So, she didn't say anything more. Instead, the two of them walked away with Mu Qingying and Mu Xiao behind them. "Miss Lin Xue," said Mu Qingying. Mu Lin Xue turned around and smiled at Mu Qingying. "Qingying, you should come with us." "All right." Mu Qingying felt guilty because of what happened the other night. Even after that, Mu Lin Xue was still so nice to her. "Miss Lin Xue, why is he?" asked Mu Qingying, glancing at Lin Feng. "Why was he coming with her?" "He's my assistant, of course he's coming with me," said Mu Lin Xue, smiling. The tournament was going to start soon, so she no longer needed to keep it a secret. Before, she used to hide that fact because she feared someone from the clan would try to harm him. Though, if she had known how strong Lin Feng was from the beginning, she might have done everything differently. "Your assistant?" Mu Qingying looked dumbstruck. Lin Feng was her assistant? "Indeed," said Mu Lin Xue, nodding. Mu Lin Xue was a genius in the clan. Her fire, her deployment spells, her weapons, everything about her was incredible. Of course, nobody thought she was stupid, so her choosing Lin Feng must have meant that. It meant that Mu Lin Xue was stronger with Lin Feng than by herself. How? Thought Mu Qingying. She was still under the impression that Lin Feng's deployment spells were very weak. Mu Qingying glanced at Mu Xiao, but Mu Xiao avoided her gaze. He looked like a child who knew he'd done something wrong but didn't want to admit it. She had the feeling that if she asked about it, it would affect their cooperation, and he couldn't do that to Mu Qingying before the tournament. How? Could Lin Feng's deployment spells be more powerful than Mu Xiao's? Then, Mu Qingying's thoughts were chaotic. She felt like she had been fooled. On that day, Qingying had been pleasantly surprised by Mu Xiao, but maybe he had actually taken credit for Lin Feng's talisman. Chapter 1629, Goldfire Tower elders and many other people were crowded on the main square of the Mu clan. Mu Lin Xue and 3 others had arrived. Many people were looking at them, which wasn't a surprise because Mu Lin Xue was the most beautiful woman of the clan. Each time she showed up, everybody couldn't help but look at her. Of course, some people were noticing Lin Feng standing next to her. Those who did frowned. They had never seen him before, so what was he doing with Mu Lin Xue? Did it mean anything? Mu Lin Xue's uncle had seen Lin Feng, but he just thought that he was a servant. But now, when he saw Lin Feng, he suddenly stood up. He walked to the edge of the battle stage and looked at them. "Lin Xue, who's that person? What is he doing here?" "His name is Lin Feng and he's my assistant," said Mu Lin Xue. Her uncle frowned and looked at Lin Feng. He had seen him a few months before when Mu Lin Xue made the level 2 imperial weapon. He had thought that Mu Lin Xue was working alone, but had that person helped Mu Lin Xue? No wonder she wasn't looking for anyone to help her. She had already found someone suitable for her, thought her uncle angrily. "You're not from the Mu clan?" "I joined the Mu clan by becoming Lin Xue's guard," replied Lin Feng, smiling. "The tournament is something extremely important for us. Do you have powerful deployment spells to show us?" asked Mu Lin Xue's uncle. He wanted to check how strong Lin Feng was and if he could really help Mu Lin Xue. "Uncle, you're asking too much. Lin Feng is my assistant and that's all. I hope you can respect my decisions," said Mu Lin Xue. She knew what her uncle was thinking. He was wanting to see if she had a chance at defeating Yan Feng. You're going to participate in the tournament, but you're not the only one involved, and your participation will have an impact on our whole clan, said Mu Lin Shui's uncle in a cold way. Mind your own business. Go find your daughter if you want handout advice, snapped Mu Lin Shui. That's enough, shouted Mu Lin Shui's grandpa furiously. Her uncle turned around and walked to the other old men. Then he said, Lin Shui is going to participate in the tournament, which is a very serious matter. With this consideration, I believe that her assistant must be experienced. First, we need to select the participants, said the main old man. His eyes were closed and he sounded indifferent. With that, Mu Lin Shui's uncle shut his mouth. Everybody was looking at Lin Feng angrily though. Of course, Lin Feng knew that was going to happen. Now he understood why she hadn't talked about him earlier. All the members from the Mu clan finished gathering there before one of the old men stood up and nodded at the crowd. This afternoon, the tournament will be held in Goldfire City. The Mu clan is going to select 5 teams, so all those who can make imperial weapons need to step forwards now. The leader of the clan had made the decision, so who was he to argue? In any case, he was convinced that Mu Lin Shui and Lin Feng would fail, so he gave up worrying over it. Even Mu Lai and Mu Yu can defeat you, thought the uncle. Mu Lai and Mu Yu were his children, so of course he gave them high praise. Everyone should go and watch the tournament, it will be beneficial for you, said the leader of the clan. Then he rose up in the air. Come, said the leader to Mu Lin Shui and the others. Mu Lin Shui and the others rose up in the air and everyone followed them. At that moment in Goldfire Tower, there were millions, if not billions of people. They were all incredible weapons craftspeople with extraordinary statuses in Goldfire City. Who would want to miss this? Everybody was excited, even people from other cities and regions came to watch. For example, there were some people from Sword Mountain there. Chapter 1630. Challenge. There were many people from the powerful sects and clans of Goldfire Tower greeting the members of the Goldfire Tower in front of the main stage. They all wore special robes with different colors: red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, purple, golden red, golden purple. 9 different colors which each represented different social statuses. Those who were wearing red were level 1 professors, those in orange were level 2 professors, those in golden red were level 8 professors, those in golden purple were level 9 weapon manufacturing masters. There was only one person wearing a golden purple robe. At that moment, the old man in the purple robe was chatting with some people happily. That weapon manufacturing master looked at a young man in a gentle way and smiled. Yan Feng, you already received the teaching from Goldfire Tower. You're a level 2 professor already, and someday, I'll be your teacher. I'm sure that within 3 years, you'll be a level 5 weapon manufacturing master. Yan Feng wore a Goldfire Tower robe, and it was orange. That was an honor to him. He felt proud to wear that robe. Soon, he'd become wearing a yellow robe. Master, you're flattering me. I will do my best to make you proud, said Yan Feng politely. He was happy that a level 7 professor was flattering him, but who wouldn't? Ha, little boy, I'm sure you won't let me down, said the old man smiling. I've heard that you have an agreement with the Mu clan, is that true? Indeed. Mu Lin Shui is the most beautiful girl of the Mu clan, and she's a very talented weapon craftswoman. If I win, we'll get married, said Yan Feng. You're a good boy. Heroes love beautiful women, so this is only normal. I've heard of her, and I think you two would be a good match. I support you in this, said the old man smiling. Thank you, master, said Yan Feng. Yan Feng, how come you're saying master? Asked an elder. Yan Feng bowed before the old man and said, I'm not a powerful weapon craftsman yet, so I must be polite. I wouldn't dare tarnish elders' reputation. When I become strong enough, things will change. Ha, I like you more and more, little boy, said the old man in the purple robe. It was as if Yan Feng had already become a protagonist of Goldfire Tower. Master, I need to get ready for the tournament, said Yan Feng politely. The old man in purple clothes nodded. Go, don't disappoint us. I won't, said Yan Feng, walking away and smiling. The Mu clan is here, said a member of the Yen clan who was gazing into the distance. Let's go and greet them, said an old man from the Yen clan smiling. Just after he said that, the Mu clan landed. Brother Mu, I trust you have been doing well since we last met, said the leader of the Yen clan smiling. You're early, said the leader of the Mu clan smiling. Even though he was smiling, it was difficult to see what he was really thinking. Let's go and have a chat. Yen Feng and Lin Shui haven't seen each other for a while, so let's leave the young people alone, said the leader of the Yen clan. It sounded like he was forcing them, leaving the leader of the Mu clan in a position where he couldn't refuse. Yen Feng went to Mu Lin Shui. Lin Shui, it won't be long before you become my wife, said Yen Feng. He had been waiting for this day for a long time now. You're ridiculous, said Mu Lin Shui in a cold way. You have no choice because you're absolutely going to lose. And after that, you'll become my wife and we will live together, said Yen Feng. Then he looked at Lin Feng, instantly looking furious. I remember back then I told you not to stand next to my wife, said Yen Feng coldly. He's my assistant and we're going to participate in the tournament as a team. Mu Lin Shui retorted. He can't be your assistant, said Yen Feng coldly. Then he looked at Lin Feng and said, Talk. Lin Feng frowned and asked Mu Lin Shui. Lin Shui, is it safe to be here at the Goldfire Tower? The Yen clan was in the northern part of Goldfire City, and they had a lot of influence. So, Lin Feng had to make sure that they wouldn't have another run-in as they did in the marketplace. Goldfire Tower guarantees the safety of those who rank in the top 10, said Mu Lin Shui. Goldfire Tower was an important institution in Goldfire City, so if anyone got hurt in one of their tournaments, then they might lose participants in future competitions. Therefore, the rule was that those who ranked in the top 10 couldn't be killed, otherwise, they'd become enemies with Goldfire Tower. Oh! Lin Feng nodded and smiled at Yen Feng indifferently. Piss off! Yen Feng was astonished. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. Lin Feng was telling him to piss off? In the northern part of Goldfire City, nobody has ever told me to piss off, even in the entire city, said Yen Feng provocatively. Just who did Lin Feng think he was? Lin Shui, let's go, said Lin Feng, smiling at Mu Lin Shui. Then he stretched out his hand and grabbed hers. Right. Mu Lin Shui smiled in a resplendent way and held hands with Lin Feng. Then they passed in front of Yen Feng and walked away. Yen Feng was furious. He was proud and Lin Feng had ignored him. Besides, he was taking his future wife away. When the crowd saw Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui holding hands, they finally understood what was going on. Who's that? He dares flirt with Yen Feng's future wife. They thought. Yen Feng understands cosmic energies already, it won't be long before he breaks through to the Huang Qi layer, thought more people. Members from the Yen clan frowned. Some of them even looked upset. Brother Mu, why are your people humiliating Yen Feng? Asked the leader of the Yen clan in a cold way. Lin Shui, shouted the leader of the Mu clan. Mu Lin Shui turned her head and said, I know what I'm doing and will bear responsibility for my actions. If the Mu clan wants to expel me, then I won't object. Mu Lin Shui had waited for that day for a long time, just like Yen Feng. She knew how strong Lin Feng was when it came to deployment spells, so she didn't care about the Mu clan's influence anymore. You? The leader of the Mu clan was furious. He glanced at Lin Feng and said, You're shameless. Mu Yi's request is difficult, thought Lin Feng. Because of Mu Lin Shui's social status, saving her was becoming even more difficult. He had to rank in the top 10, otherwise, nobody would protect him. Not to mention he had to beat Yen Feng. I've always been audacious, said Lin Feng shrugging. He didn't know what else to say at this point. The tournament hadn't even started, he had already offended 2 groups. It's almost as if he was cursed to upset other people. Boom! A terrifying fire started burning on Yen Feng's robes. He was standing in the sky above Lin Feng, just 1 step away from killing him. Lin Shui, what is he doing? Asked Lin Feng, pointing at Yen Feng. I don't know, said Mu Lin Shui shrugging. They looked at Yen Feng just like they'd look at a monkey in a zoo. Chapter 1631. The Great Tournament. Mu Lin Shui was pleasantly surprised. She didn't realize that Lin Feng could have a sense of humor in such worrying circumstances. Yan Feng wanted to scare him and had provoked him, but it hadn't worked, and now Yan Feng looked like a buffoon. Yan Feng was furious. He released more energies, but nobody paid attention to him. He slowly recalled his cosmic energies and said coldly, "Mu Lin Shui, you will regret that. After the tournament, when we get to the Yen clan, nobody will be able to save you anymore." "And you," said Yan Feng turning to Lin Feng. "You don't even know what you did to yourself now." "Lin Shui, let's go," said Lin Feng, smiling at Mu Lin Shui. No need to waste their breath with him. "All right." Then the two of them held hands and walked away. Was he really going to get married with the most beautiful lady from the Mu clan? From everybody else's perspective, she was holding hands with another young man. Who's that guy? He's got some balls to upset Yan Feng. Some people thought. Lin Feng didn't have time to think about those things. It wouldn't be long before they were going to start the tournament. That Sea-Man Nan from the eastern part of the city. It is said that he's already a level 2 professor. The only thing is that he hasn't come to the Goldfire Tower yet, so they haven't been able to check. Some people were talking about 2 people who were approaching. Sea-Man Nan from the eastern part of the city, Guqing Feng from the western part, Yan Feng from the northern part, and Hen Chang Tian from the central part. They were the most talented people of their generation. Mu Lin Shui wasn't just talented, she was also very beautiful. When Mu Lin Shui saw Sea-Man Nan, she said to Lin Feng, "That Sea-Man Nan, he's one of the 4 most talented weapon craftspeople in Goldfire City, but he's discreet so nobody really knows how strong he is. I'm guessing that he's at least as strong as Yan Feng." "All right." Lin Feng nodded. It seemed like making a level 2 weapon wasn't enough to rank in the top 10 at the event. "Guqing Feng is here too. He's a genius from the western part," said Mu Lin Shui. Guqing Feng was wearing silver clothes, and he looked majestic with the wind blowing his robes against him. He silently landed on the area after she identified him to Lin Feng. Lin Feng glanced around, watching everybody arriving. "Lin Feng, look," said Mu Lin Shui, pointing at the main bleachers. "Those people are weapon craftspeople from the Goldfire Tower. The colors of their robes indicate their level: red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, purple, golden red, golden purple. Of which, those colors respectively mean level 1 to level 9. Lin Feng glanced at them. Only one opportunity, and if they didn't manage to make an imperial weapon, they'd be eliminated. This time, the test was about determination and the ability to make weapons, so failing was forbidden. "Now, start making weapons," shouted the weapon manufacturing master. Phew! Mu Qingning took a deep breath. With Mu Xiao, they still couldn't manage to make imperial weapons every time, only sometimes. But no matter, they couldn't fail this time. They glanced at Mu Lin Shui and Lin Feng. Mu Lin Shui had already taken out a cauldron and materials, and she was starting the fire. She had prepared everything, and just making an imperial weapon was already easy for her and Lin Feng. The first round shouldn't be a problem for them. "Good luck, but remember that if you fail, you'll be mine," said Yan Feng in a cold way, taking out his own things. Chapter 1632. First round. Yan Feng was using an ancient snake cauldron which had snakes and dragons carved on it. After he released his fire, Lin Feng was surprised to see a powerful fire cosmic energy burning. It was fierce, brutal, and wild. The fire he uses is a green-scaled snake fire. The Yen clan killed some green-scaled snake emperors for him and stole their cosmic fire to improve his own, said Mu Lin Shui to Lin Feng using telepathy. Lin Feng smiled wryly. Disciples from rich families seem to always be spoiled. Their family spent a lot of money for them, and Yan Feng was no exception. Lin Feng noticed that many other people had special types of fire as well, especially the other geniuses. Hen Chang Tian specifically caught his eye with his golden fire. That tournament wasn't fair at all. Mu Lin Shui's fire and cauldron weren't bad, but their quality was much lower than everyone else's. Yan Feng glanced at Lin Feng. Seeing how the first round wasn't that difficult, he didn't need to focus that much. After a short time, Yan Feng shouted at the person who was with him, "Carve the marks." His assistant was a girl wearing black clothes. She wasn't as beautiful as Mu Lin Xue and her qi was very cold. However, she was an expert at carving marks, and her speed was noteworthy. Very quickly, a sword started whistling above Yanfeng's cauldron. Feng is already a master when it comes to making swords, so the first round should be extremely easy for him, said the leader of the Yan clan smiling. Yan Feng was the fastest one. He doesn't even need to try this round, said a strong cultivator from Sword Mountain. All the cultivators from the Yan clan focused on swords because they cooperated with Sword Mountain. Mu Lin Xue is shameless. I wonder if she should even become Yanfeng's wife, said the leader of the Yan clan in a cold way. Mu Lin Xue and Lin Feng seemed to have an intimate relation. How could Yan Feng want a woman who was sleeping with other men? How could she even act proudly and arrogantly like that? Yan Feng's sword whistled in the air. Then a few seconds later, Hen Chang Tian and the others also finished making their imperial weapons. One of the 7 purple-clothed strong cultivators from Goldfire Tower smiled. How will those 4 rank in your opinion? No idea. In terms of level, Hen Chang Tian could be the strongest one, but he's making weapons alone. Yan Feng and the others have assistants, so it's much easier for them, said another one smiling. They didn't care if anyone could hear them. I think Yan Feng is the best. He makes quality weapons, his fire is great, and he is the fastest. I think he might rank first, said another one smiling. It was the guy who wanted Yan Feng as his disciple. Gu Qingfeng is not a weakling either, said another one smiling. Let's see. We won't learn much in the first round after all. Maybe some of them will make level 4 imperial weapons later, said one of them. His eyes were twinkling. Indeed. Look at that girl, the one from the Mu clan. She's good, but her fire, cauldron, and pace aren't as good as Yanfeng's. However, the young man next to her is good. They could rank in the top 10 if they work together. After all, she's already a level 2 professor, said another master wearing purple clothes. Hee, that girl is going to become Yanfeng's wife, said Yanfeng's future teacher. They all smiled at him and said, you already know Yanfeng's attitude, but if she does rank in the top 10 and doesn't want to get married with Yanfeng, then nobody will be able to force her. Yanfeng's future teacher looked surprised. Indeed, if she managed to rank in the top 10, then Goldfire Tower would have to protect her. But the Mu clan and the Yan clan have an agreement, so you're not quite right. Besides, it's too early to talk about that now. First, she has to rank in the top 10, said Yanfeng's future teacher. Even though he wasn't Yanfeng's teacher yet, he already considered himself as such. We'll see, said another one smiling. At that moment, Lin Feng rose up in the air and started carving deployment marks. It was nothing too difficult for him as he was using a shattering spell. That team is great, that boy's deployment marks are perfect for Mu Lin Xue, thought the professor who thought highly of Mu Lin Xue and Lin Feng. He wasn't the only one to think that way. Some of the other professors were also pleasantly surprised. Yan Feng looked at his assistant, the girl in black clothes, and asked, what do you think of her? Yan Feng looked angry asking, but he still wanted to compare himself to them. She's all right. I'm not amazed, but she's not bad either. I don't think they can win at least, said the girl wearing black clothes. Yan Feng nodded. He didn't think about it too much after that. Lin Feng's deployment marks weren't too complex. It was only the first round, and making an imperial weapon was the only requirement. After carving the marks, he started hammering the weapon. Finally, they made a sword, an imperial weapon. The Mu clan watched as the sword rose up in the air. They were surprised. Mu Lin Xue's assistant wasn't bad. There were no mistakes in his deployment marks. But they still felt uneasy. Just where did Lin Feng come from and who was he? In any case, it was far from being enough. To rank in the top 10, they had a long way to go still. Even though it was only the first round, the crowd had already noticed many geniuses. Mu Qingying didn't pay attention to anyone else. Her forehead was already covered in sweat. She was using her full strength to make that imperial weapon. Mu Xiao and Mu Qingying couldn't succeed that easily, so they couldn't afford to get distracted. In the end, they did succeed in making an imperial weapon. Afterwards, Mu Qingying looked very happy. Chapter 1633, Fabrication Speed, we did it. I can move on to the next round, thought Mu Qingying, looking at her weapon which was floating in the air. She then glanced at Mu Linxue and Lin Feng. They had finished before her and were patiently waiting. Lin Feng fooled me, thought Mu Qingying, glancing at Lin Feng. Back when he first joined the Mu clan, he hadn't said much, and he looked ordinary, but he was actually so good at carving deployment marks and casting deployment spells. He couldn't be any worse than Mu Xiao in fact. Miss Lin Shui, good luck. I'm sure you can rank in the top 10, said Mu Qingying to Mu Lin Shui, smiling. Thanks, you too. Your weapon is not too bad, so you should relax, said Mu Lin Shui smiling. Mu Lai and Mu Yu groaned coldly and said, with just you guys, we're the only ones who will be able to make the clan shine. Mu Lin Shui glanced at Mu Lai and smiled indifferently, don't worry. In the future, nobody will try to steal your resources in the Mu clan, at least, I won't. Mu Lin Shui's uncle wanted her to leave the clan and hand her over to the Yen clan because of his own children. They were talented, so he wanted the Mu clan to focus on them. Mu Lin Shui was a problem, but if she left, his children would become the geniuses of the clan. Then they would get all the resources from the clan for themselves. Because of this, Mu Lai and Mu Yu considered Mu Lin Shui as their enemy. You are aware of what you're worth, that's good. When you go to the Yen clan in the future, you won't have problems anymore. Of course, since your assistant humiliated the Yen clan, maybe they will reject you instead, said Mu Lai smiling mockingly, trying to infuriate Mu Lin Shui. Mu Lin Shui looked at him in a cold way, but Lin Feng smiled and said, Lin Shui, don't waste your time talking to them. It's obvious that they have no values. All right. Mu Lin Shui nodded and ignored Mu Lai. You've got a big mouth. Just wait and see, we'll know soon if you have the skill to back up your words, said Mu Li. At that moment, the 2 hours had already passed. One of the purple-clothed professors jumped forwards and shouted, those who aren't done can stop, you're eliminated, so you can leave. You were too slow. Many people left disappointed. Half of the participants had already been eliminated from the first round. The purple-clothed professor glanced at the remaining people, noting that there were a few thousand left. Then he said, all right, get ready for the second round. You have 2 hours again. During the second round, you can fail and try again if you finish within the allocated time, but only those who can make level 2 Imperial weapons can move on. The maximum number of people who can move on to the next round will be 100. Therefore, the faster you are, the better. Everybody listened calmly. They weren't surprised because they knew that thousands of people were too much to work with. Level 2 Imperial weapon, whispered Mu Qingying to herself. She smiled wryly. It seemed that the first round was her limit. She couldn't make a level 2 Imperial weapon. On top of that, only the first 100 people could succeed. The second round starts now, said the purple-clothed professor before he jumped back. Scorching hot flames appeared all around. The participants couldn't waste time during the second round, so they all pushed their flames immediately. Lin Shui, make a sword and use the best materials. I'll change the deployment spell to accommodate, said Lin Feng to Mu Lin Shui. They had already talked about the tournament, but they hadn't discussed the details of the second round. In any case, they didn't lack good materials. All right, I'll listen to you, said Mu Lin Shui smiling at Lin Feng. She was extremely nervous already. Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui hadn't made that many level 2 Imperial weapons. Of course, she didn't have any doubts about Lin Feng's abilities to cast deployment spells or her own abilities. If they focused, a level 2 Imperial weapon shouldn't be a problem. The 7 purple-clothed professors glanced at the crowd and smiled. You said Mu Lin Shui was good? But Yen Feng has already released half of the fire required, while Mu Lin Shui just started releasing her fire. Another professor was looking at them and smiling. Speed and power are two different things. She is slower than Yen Feng, but that doesn't mean she isn't as talented as him. This just means that she doesn't have the same advantages. All right, let's wait and see, said Yen Feng's future professor, smiling indifferently. That round was more intense than the first round. Almost all the contestants were covered in sweat. Boom! Explosions sounded as a cauldron filled with materials exploded. The 2 participants were shaking violently, their soul strength wasn't enough, and they hadn't been able to stand the fire. They smiled wryly and stopped. They instead decided to watch the others, hoping to learn something from them. Mu Qing was nervous, her throat was completely dry, she felt exhausted, and she looked desperate. With Mu Zhao's deployment spells, we can't possibly make a level 2 Imperial weapon. We should just give up too, thought Mu Qing. Then, her fire disappeared. Mu Zhao suddenly looked at her and said, "Miss, we participated in the tournament, which is good already, but we can't possibly pass the second round. Let's just watch the others instead." Mu Qing was exhausted. She looked at Mu Linshui. Lin Feng was already carving deployment marks and a sword shape had already formed. Those deployment marks are so complex. Mu Zhao couldn't possibly carve such marks, thought Mu Qing stupefied. She was very unhappy thinking that such an incredible deployment spellcaster had spent time with her and she hadn't realized. Even the first time she had seen Lin Feng, she told him that his deployment spell wasn't good enough. Lin Feng had never tried to defend himself in front of her. Just like he had said several times now, he hadn't joined the Mu clan for her. At that moment, Lin Feng was very focused. His carved deployment marks were intertwining in complex ways. What a powerful deployment spell. If Lin Shui doesn't make any mistakes, managing to make the weapon fuse together with the marks, then they will succeed in making a level 2 Imperial weapon, thought Mu Qing. She seemed awestruck. Mu Zhao didn't look so happy. He knew Lin Feng was good, but he didn't know Lin Feng was that good. Those deployment marks are incredible. I wonder how many small deployment spells they contain, thought the professor who had previously thought highly of Lin Feng and Mu Linshui. He looked pleasantly surprised. He found nothing to criticize as the marks were precise, distinct, clear, perfect. "Good!" shouted the professor next to him loudly. Yan Feng rose up in the air, having already made a level 2 Imperial weapon. He was the first one to succeed even. Good, good. People from the Yan clan stood up, feeling immense pride. Yan Feng also looked proud and arrogant, then he turned to Mu Linshui and Lin Feng. Lin Feng was now hammering the weapon. "You overestimated yourself. I will take Mu Linshui in my arms and you will stand there watching us," thought Yan Feng angrily. Suddenly, someone else rose up in the air. It was Hen Chang Tian. He had also made a level 2 Imperial weapon. Chapter 1634, End of the second round. After Hen Chang Tian, Si-Man Nan and Guqing Feng finished their weapons. Even though it was difficult to say how strong someone could really become at their age, it was obvious that Hen Chang Tian and the three others had the most potential. The crowd in the Yen clan's bleachers were smiling happily. They chatted with the strong cultivators from Sword Mountain. On the Mu clan side, some people looked upset, while some only frowned. Only the leader of the Mu clan looked indifferent, calm and serene. Nobody could guess what he was thinking. With that speed, they can probably finish in the top 100 this round, but they won't rank in the top 10 in the third round, thought Mu Linshui's uncle, looking at Lin Feng and Mu Linshui. At least he hoped Mu Linshui wouldn't rank in the top 10 in the next round. More and more people managed to make level 2 weapons. The participants who weren't done were getting more nervous. The ground would shake every now and then as cauldrons exploded. It was easy to make mistakes, especially under such pressure. Even some participants who were outstanding were so nervous that they made mistakes. Some who failed tried again, but they had less time, so it was less likely they'd make it. Since Yan Feng was already done making a level 2 Imperial weapon, more people had turned to look at Lin Feng and Mu Linshui. Mu Linshui and Lin Feng were still concentrating. Nobody could distract them. Their movements were perfect, as if they had been coordinating with each other for a long time already. Lin Feng finally finished hammering the weapon, so now Mu Linshui was putting on the finishing touches. "Relax, everything will be fine," said Lin Feng after he saw that Mu Linshui was sweating a lot. He whispered this in her ear while using his sleeve to wipe the sweat off her forehead. Even though Mu Linshui was a genius, she hadn't been through as much as Lin Feng in her life. That tournament was extremely important to her, more so than to Lin Feng. But she felt relieved to see Lin Feng so calm. She took a deep breath and continued. At that moment, the weapon manufacturing master in the golden-purple robe was sitting at the very top of the bleachers. In front of him were the three masters in golden red clothes. One of them looked at Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui and whispered, "This time Chang Tian is working by himself," and everybody noticed Yan Feng, but there are some discreet geniuses. With his experience and advanced age, he could see through some things. People who looked ordinary were often the strongest ones. Of course, that was not guaranteed. "Who's that?" asked a professor next to the one in golden red clothes. He was referring to Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui. "You mean that girl? I know her, she's from the Mu clan, and her name is Mu Lin Shui. She's very talented from what I've heard. The little boy from the Yen clan wants to marry her but she doesn't want to," replied another professor, smiling indifferently. They didn't know all the young people from Goldfire City, but they knew the most famous ones, including Mu Lin Shui. "I'm not talking about her, I'm talking about the little boy next to her," said the professor, smiling. He was interested in Lin Feng. He had noticed how incredible Lin Feng's deployment spells were, not having made any mistakes. Even though he looked ordinary, he could become an incredible deployment spellcaster in the future. It was difficult to know how strong such people really were, but Lin Feng didn't look nervous at all. He even cheered Mu Lin Shui up. "I don't know, but he's just Mu Lin Shui's assistant. I don't know if he's a member of the Mu clan or not, but do you think he's that good? I can ask around for you," said another professor, smiling. "No need, I still want to watch him." "What about you, buddy? Anyone worth watching?" "Huh, it's a secret," said a professor, laughing wholeheartedly. "At the end of the tournament, I'll also know who the strongest ones are, so if you say nothing now, you won't be able to choose anyone then," said the other one, laughing. 56 people are already done making level 2 Imperial weapons. "My fire isn't powerful enough, I still need to improve it," thought Mu Qingying. "Done!" shouted Mu Lai extremely loudly. Mu Lai and Mu Yu raised their heads. They looked overjoyed. They had done it. Good. Mu Lin Shui's uncle stood up and shouted with joy. Mu Lai and Mu Yu were a great team. They were even better than Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui. After the tournament, Mu Lai and Mu Yu would become the heroes of the Mu clan. Mu Lin Shui was calm with Lin Feng standing beside her. With him there, it was as if the outside world had nothing to do with her. She didn't rush like most others. 63 people had succeeded, and at that moment, Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui's imperial weapon rose up in the air. It was a sword. Mu Lin Shui smiled thinly. She didn't even raise her head to look at the sword. She instead turned to Lin Feng and smiled thinly, but she didn't look surprised though. "Lin Feng," said Mu Lin Shui. Lin Feng smiled. "You're not going to thank me, right?" "No, I'm just thinking, maybe we should make love at some point," said Mu Lin Shui jokingly. With that, Lin Feng smiled wryly. Mu Lin Shui also smiled wryly after she heard that. She even stuck her tongue out. "Sister Lin Shui, congratulations," said Mu Qingying. She admired Mu Lin Shui. Even though she had given up during the second round, she felt even more determined after watching Mu Lin Shui. "Someday, you'll do it too," said Mu Lin Shui, smiling at Mu Qingying. Mu Qingying nodded and looked at Lin Feng. He looked calm, as if they hadn't worked so hard. "It's almost the end, you'll definitely rank in the top 10, Sister Lin Shui," said Mu Qingying. "Top 10. Mu Lai groaned coldly and said, "You ranked 64 in the second round, how could you rank in the top 10, you morons?" Mu Lin Shui calmly glanced at Mu Lai, but said nothing. To her, Mu Lai and Mu Yu were insignificant. "Hee, Lin Shui, you're soon going to join my clan soon," said Yan Feng. Mu Lin Shui glanced at him mockingly. She didn't even reply to him. No matter what he said, she despised him. When the 100th team rose up in the air, one of the professors in purple stood up and smiled. "All right now, those who have been eliminated can move away." Many people then left. Very quickly, only 100 people were left on the stage. The tournament was nearing its end. Chapter 1635. The prizes. The crowd looked at the participants. Initially, there were dozens of thousands of people, now there were 100 only. Maybe in a few years later, they'd be incredible heroes. The last part of the tournament would be an opportunity for them to rise. At the same time, the 7 professors in purple clothes walked forwards and said, "Before we start the finals, The professor in golden purple clothes has an announcement to make concerning the prizes. The crowd grew excited, especially considering that Goldfire Tower was the richest group in Goldfire City. They probably had anything anyone could want. The level 9 professor slowly walked forwards with the 3 professors in golden red robes following him. They looked at the young people and smiled in a gentle way. "Hello, masters." The young people all bowed respectfully as a sign of respect. Those professors were already terrifyingly powerful. Those were probably already at the top of the Huangqi layer. "You're too polite. You're all outstanding young people, and if you continue making great efforts, then you'll be like us in the future, perhaps even surpassing us," said the level 9 professor smiling. "I'll be managing the finals," said the level 9 professor smiling. "The winners of the tournament will obtain a special fire. Our group, Goldfire Tower, killed a 9-headed snake which can swallow animals' fire. As such, medium-level emperors or below can't possibly stand that fire. If they get attacked by it, they could only die. We took that fire and it will act as the first prize of this tournament," said the level 9 professor. "A 9-headed imperial snake and a high-level emperor. If I could get it, I'd be able to make even better weapons. I could also easily kill most of my enemies," thought everybody. They calmed down again very quickly though. Very few of them thought that they could rank in the top 10, let alone first. "I must get that fire," thought Yan Feng. His eyes were twinkling with greed. He smiled and thought, "This time, I'll go back with a beautiful girl and a wonderful prize." "Alright, that fire is for the first place winner. The second place winner will obtain an armor, a level 7 imperial weapon. This armor can protect anyone from a medium-level emperor or below," said the level 9 professor. That item was priceless. The third prize is a level 7 imperial weapon, but it's an offensive weapon. A level 7 imperial weapon again. The prizes are even better than 30 years ago, thought some older people who had watched the last tournament. Those who rank 4th and 5th will obtain a level 6 imperial weapon, and those who will rank 6th to 10th will obtain level 5 imperial weapons. "I don't need to tell you what they are, you will just have to wait and see," said the weapon manufacturing master in the golden purple clothes smiling. "Apart from that, the first 10 will be protected in Goldfire City. You must understand what that means. If you attack someone who ranks in the top 10, you will become an enemy of Goldfire Tower. Besides that, I have some good news. The very best ones will have the opportunity to study with one of the 3 teachers wearing the golden red clothes for a year. Of course, if your relationship evolves and you become their disciples, I will only be very happy to hear it." Learning from level 8 teachers. Many people were overly excited at this point. However, if one of them notices one of you, they can also choose you, and if you agree, you can become their disciple. I don't need to explain that. No matter, you are free to do whatever you want," said the level 9 professor smiling. "Finally, the top 10 participants or those I choose will have the opportunity to directly become members of Goldfire Tower," said the level 9 professor. Everybody smiled and nodded. Then he moved back as it was time to start the finals. They only had a part of the ancient scriptures, but it was already enough to make ordinary stones become gold. They had a saying in the clan: the 9-weapon transformation technique could make emperors become great emperors. "Indeed, it's practically guaranteed that Yan Feng will rank first this time," said a cultivator from Sword Mountain, smiling. Mu Lin Shui continued controlling her fire, having made no mistakes so far. The embryo of the weapon had already appeared, and the outline of a spear was forming. A spear! The members of the Yen clan smiled coldly. They didn't have a lot of space to work with, so it was difficult to carve marks into them, and spears weren't considered special weapons either. Besides, at the same level, they weren't necessarily any better than other weapons. That was probably a bad choice on their part. She already gave up on the inside, thought Mu Lin Shui's uncle, smiling coldly. The one you like sucks. Surprisingly, she's only making a spear. She can't rank in the top 10 with that, said Yan Feng's future teacher laughing. The one who liked Lin Feng and Lin Shui frowned. He was just as surprised as everyone else to see that the embryo of had a spear shape. Carving marks into such a weapon wouldn't be easy, especially seeing how the embryo of the spear Mu Lin Shui was making looked even more complex than an ordinary spear. It was more precise and more detailed. The masters of Goldfire Tower all had someone who had attracted their attention. Apart from those in purple, one master in a golden red robe was paying attention to Mu Lin Shui. He was pleasantly surprised. He smiled and thought, finally, we're going to see his real strength. He had been paying attention to Lin Feng the entire time, but he found Lin Feng too mysterious. Lin Feng, said Mu Lin Shui, opening her eyes. Lin Feng suddenly opened his eyes. He looked determined. Suddenly, a terrifying chi surrounded him, along with dazzling lights. Earth abstruse energies emerged from his hands as he started carving marks. The space around him shook violently as marks started appearing. Apart from earth abstruse energy, he also used immortal abstruse energy to carve. Boom! Lin Feng's hands shook, and the marks started intertwining. Empty space deployment spell? Many people were staring at Lin Feng now. Surprisingly, he was carving empty space deployment marks. Lin Feng seemed like he was dancing as he carved the mark. It seemed like the more difficult the mark, the faster he moved. Bzz. Now destructive energies emerged, and the small deployment spells started intertwining. Very quickly, the deployment spells fused together. Mu Qing-ing was astonished. Lin Feng's deployment spells were so powerful? People from the Mu clan and the Yen clan frowned. Mu Lin Shui's assistant could carve such terrifying deployment spells? Go down. Lin Feng shook his hand and his deployment marks all crashed onto the embryo of the weapon. Those deployment marks still aren't enough, said the leader of the Yen clan, smiling coldly. However, after he said that, Lin Feng shook his hands again and continued carving empty space deployment marks. He wasn't done yet. Chapter 1637. Transformations. The leader of the Yen clan was surprised. He then added, even if you can make more deployment spells, Yen Feng is still going to rank first, or at least in the top 3, while you have no chance. Many people were finally noticing Lin Feng. But he remained calm and indifferent. Very quickly, Lin Feng carved more deployment marks which crashed onto the weapon again. Even then, Lin Feng still wasn't done. He continued carving marks again. Many people's hearts started racing at that moment. Mu Qing-ing was fixedly staring at Lin Feng's marks. Because the embryo of that spear was so complex, Lin Feng had to carve a wide range of deployment marks, which made things too complex and too easy to make mistakes. Lin Feng, however, did everything step by step, without making any mistakes. Mu Xiao, back then, the deployment spell you showed me was Lin Feng's. Am I right? Asked Mu Qing-ing as if she had been talking to herself, but Mu Xiao still heard her and started trembling. Mu Qing-ing had wanted to ask that question for a while, and now that she was done with the tournament, she had no reason not to. Miss Qing-ing, Mu Xiao bowed. He wanted to explain, but Mu Qing-ing ignored him. She shook her hand and said, there's no need to explain anything. Mu Qing-ing now understood that Mu Xiao had fooled her and lied. Lin Feng hadn't felt the need to justify himself or explain anything because he never really cared. Mu Qing-ing felt ridiculous and pathetic now. She was so confident in herself. Even till now there was a part of her which thought that Lin Feng had joined the Mu clan just for her. Lin Shui, why are you better than me in everything? Am I too stupid? Thought Mu Qing-ing. Mu Lin Shui had immediately noticed that Lin Feng was outstanding while Mu Qing-ing had always thought that he was ordinary. Mu Xiao didn't know what Mu Qing-ing was thinking. He was too worried about his future. What would happen to him now? I knew it. That little boy is special. I'm not stupid in thinking that those two might rank in the top 10, said the professor in purple clothes who had noticed Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui before. He was smiling indifferently, but the professor next to him groaned coldly and said, do you have so much faith in those two? At the very least, I don't think they're that bad, replied the professor. The Yen clan and the Mu clan gambled with Mu Lin Shui and Yen Feng's fates at stake. How about we bet too? Said Yen Feng's future teacher, smiling in a cold way. Yen Feng was using the 9-weapon transformation technique, so he could probably make a level 3 imperial weapon. With that in mind, how could Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui compete with him? What do you want to bet? Asked the other one. If Yan Feng wins, you show me your weapon fabrication technique. If he loses, I'll show you mine. What do you think? Said Yan Feng's future teacher. He had always wanted to know what technique that professor used. The professor was surprised. Apparently, Yan Feng's future teacher had a lot of faith in his future student. Can I think about it more? Asked the professor, smiling indifferently. Of course you can, said the other one, smiling. He knew what the other professor was thinking. He wanted to see how far Lin Feng's deployment mark technique went. Now he paid even more attention to Lin Feng. Lin Feng was still carving empty space marks. The holy marks on the weapon were becoming more and more dazzling. He's carving a great deployment spell using so many small deployment spells. All the while those small deployment spells are perfect for the weapon, thought the crowd. Many people had hidden their true powers, but Lin Feng was the best one so far. So, what do you say? Asked Yan Feng's future teacher. The professor narrowed his eyes and stared at Lin Feng's deployment marks. He shook his head and said, All right, I accept your bet. Good, but don't go back on your word now, said Yan Feng's future teacher. I never lie. All right, everybody here is a witness. The 5 others smiled and nodded. Maybe the champion of the tournament will be Chang Tian, said another one. Chang Tian was very strong. Even though he worked alone, he had already finished making the embryo and was now carving marks. He was making a big tower which was 3 meters high and was entirely made of gold. Apparently, carving marks didn't seem to make him too tired, but he was having to carve a lot. If his golden tower had any special powers, and if he managed to make a level 3 tower, then it'd be better than most ordinary level 3 imperial weapons. That was why that professor thought highly of him. Gu Qingfeng was making a fan which contained ice-cold energies. Seaman Nan was making a pair of gigantic wings. Yan Feng's weapon was the most ordinary amongst the 4 geniuses. He was making a sword, again. Slash, slash. At that moment 2 hours had already passed. Lin Feng seemed to have finished carving in his marks. Their weapon was still only an embryo, but its energies were terrifying. That deployment spell is explosively terrifying, thought the crowd in awe. It seems like those 2 aren't going to try a second time. They made such great efforts anyways, they couldn't possibly put as much energy in a second weapon, thought the crowd. Boom! A scorching hot fire hit the stage. Yan Feng's sword embryo was absorbing terrifying amounts of that fire. At that moment he glanced at Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui and said in a cold way, You hid your real strength, but it looks like I'll still have to disappoint you. 4th transformation. With that, the bright red sword embryo's shape changed again. Its fire became even more terrifying. Rise, shouted Seaman Nan at that moment. His wings embryo surprisingly rose up in the air and shook. He had hidden something too. Chapter 1638. Weapon Clouds. Those wings could definitely be a level 3 imperial weapon and the quality wouldn't be low, thought everybody after they saw the embryo of Seaman Nan's wings. On top of that, Seaman Nan and his assistant were carving marks together. They were using wind-type strength to carve marks and their energy was ever increasing. Gu Qingfeng's fan was an ice fan, which emanated a frost which would send a chill down anyone's back. No, you can't, said a young man as the ice energies surrounded him. Not only him, his cauldron also started freezing, his fire fading. His assistant had moved back silently. The crowd was speechless. They couldn't attack others, but Gu Qingfeng hadn't done it on purpose. It was just that his energies were too vast. A professor in purple clothes looked embarrassed. The young man broke through the ice, and besides the shivering, he looked furious. It had been so difficult to get to the finals, and now he was going to get eliminated like that? You still have time. Go to another place and continue making your weapon. In any case, with your strength, you wouldn't have ranked in the top 10. You still need to improve a lot, said one of the professors in purple. That young man lowered his head and remained silent. Then he took his cauldron away. He didn't want to make a weapon anymore. He was too upset, and he knew that he couldn't compete with those people anyways. Watching up close wasn't bad either. At that moment, golden lights filled the stage as Hen Chang Tian's tower reached the clouds, its energy pressing down on everyone. That's a level 3 Imperial weapon. Who could defeat him? Thought the crowd. Marks, condense, shouted Lin Feng again. In a flash, dazzling lights emerged from his marks as they intertwined together. Hammer, shouted Lin Feng. Instantly, Mu Lin Shui threw the hammer at Lin Feng. He moved his hand and caught it without even looking up. Then he started hammering the weapon relentlessly. Is that the final version? Thought the crowd. The energies were already explosive, so how much stronger could it get? Nobody could be sure. That deployment spell could definitely make a level 3 Imperial weapon, and it would be a powerful weapon at that, but is it enough? Whispered Yan Feng's future teacher. The other professor in purple clothes smiled and said, "It seems that you're starting to regret. The tournament isn't over yet, so don't get so happy too early. That spear is great, and the deployment spell is explosive, the materials are the best, and finally, I'm certain that it can kill low-level emperors. All in all, there's nothing Yan Feng does that they can't do," said the teacher who thought highly of Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui. He looked calm outwardly, but on the inside he was nervous. Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui's weapon was extremely complex. Lin Feng's deployment spell was actually too complex. No matter what the result of the tournament was, he wanted to invite Lin Feng to join him at Goldfire Tower. Even if he didn't make weapons, his deployment spells were useful. The spear appeared indistinctly as lights and sharp energies rolled in waves. A powerful hurricane also formed. Weapon cloud. The crowd was astonished. Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui had created 2 embryos and a weapon cloud had appeared. Kacha! An explosion sounded next to Lin Feng. Mu Lai and Mu Yu's faces were black after their cauldron had exploded. The tournament was over for them. They both raised their heads and saw Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui's weapon cloud. They were furious. Were Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui actually better than them? Chapter 1639. Birth of an Imperial weapon. Mu Lai and Mu Yu had lost, and their father, Mu Lin Shui's uncle, looked furious. His dreams were ruined. The clan wouldn't raise his children after this. Especially after Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui's made that weapon cloud appear. His cheeks felt extremely hot. Everybody from the Mu clan was staring at him. Mu Lai and Mu Yu are not resilient enough. How can they become strong that way? Said the leader of the Mu clan indifferently. Mu Lin Shui's uncle was petrified and furious. Master, there are success rates for these things. People who make weapons can't succeed every time. There are hundreds of teams and some people fail, it's only normal. Mu Lai and Mu Yu aren't the only ones who failed. Besides, there aren't many people in the clan who are as good as Mu Yu and Mu Lai. Please forgive them. They're not bad at making weapons and failing isn't a problem either. The problem is that they were influenced from seeing Lin Shui's weapon cloud. Of course, only time can tell how they'll evolve. Said the leader of the Mu clan indifferently. If Mu Lin Shui defeats Yan Feng, what will the Mu clan do? Thought Mu Lin Shui's uncle. His heart was pounding. Would the Mu clan have to give up Mu Lin Shui? If Mu Lin Shui and Lin Feng defeated Yan Feng, they'd have to rank in the top 3. If that was the case, Goldfire Tower would have to protect them, even if the Mu clan changed their mind. Impossible, even with a weapon cloud they can't win, thought Mu Lin Shui's uncle. Everybody had different thoughts. For example, the teacher who thought highly of Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui suddenly felt relieved. He even whispered, "Weapon cloud, they can win." He glanced at Yan Feng's future teacher who was next to him. They were both wondering who would win. Lin Feng had exceeded all their expectations. Yan Feng looked upset, but he immediately took a deep breath and tried to control himself. He spat out more blood, making his sword become redder. His cloud was also looking thicker. Boom! At that moment, Hen Chang Tian had begun hammering his tower. A weapon cloud had appeared as well, but at the same time it seemed like it wasn't condensing. Chang Tian can make level 3 Imperial weapons on his own. It's just a pity that he doesn't have an assistant who can help him with the deployment spells, thought the members of Goldfire Tower. With Lin Feng's deployment spells, Hen Chang Tian could have made a terrifying weapon. This tournament is great, there are so many geniuses this time, thought the level 9 professor, smiling. Even though many people had failed, there were also many who stood out. Around 20 teams could make level 3 imperial weapons. Henchang Tian, Guqing Feng, Siman Nan and Yanfeng's weapons would have a strength at the top of the 3rd level. Yanfeng might even make a level 4 imperial weapon. Mu Lin Shui and Lin Feng were also amazing. A cloud had appeared which meant they might succeed in making a level 4 imperial weapon as well. If you think highly of someone, do your best to keep them, said the cultivator in golden purple clothes, still smiling. By now, you've probably already noticed someone you'd like to recruit. The little boy with the amazing deployment spells is interesting. The girl he helps is interesting, but her fire is too weak. However, if she was raised properly, she could become quite strong, said the one who thought highly of Lin Feng. He said that because he was afraid that those next to him would choose them. You're getting too enthusiastic. His deployment spells are good indeed, but he's just helping. He might not be interested in making weapons. I think Yanfeng is better. He's aggressive and arrogant, but he's still young. I like his style, said the professor in golden red clothes, smiling. What about you? Asked the professor in golden purple clothes to the last one. That one, said the professor pointing at a young man. He had remained calm the whole time as if the outside world had nothing to do with him. I noticed him too. He's not bad indeed. He's still young and doesn't have incredible techniques, but he can make level 2 weapons and isn't risking making a level 3 imperial weapon, said the professor in golden purple clothes, smiling. The advantage of the finals was that they could focus on certain people, even if those people didn't win. At that moment, Lin Feng was done carving marks, and their weapon was surrounded by cyan lights. No one could tell what Lin Feng had carved. Lin Feng put the embryo of the weapon on the cauldron again and continued hammering it violently. Yanfeng was almost done. His red cloud practically blotted out the entire sky. He had sacrificed his own blood 7 times, and now he looked exhausted. His chi had started looking weaker. But no matter what, he had to defeat Mu Lin Shui and Lin Feng. Almost done. If Yanfeng succeeds, then nobody will beat him. The leader of the Yan clan stood up, looking at Yanfeng's weapon. Many other members from the Yan clan also stood up. They could already see Yanfeng becoming the champion. Yanfeng grabbed the sword with both hands, then his hands turned scarlet red as his blood penetrated the sword. His hands shook 9 times, all the while his sword kept whistling. Go! He shouted furiously. His sword pierced through the sky, the red cloud completely being sucked up by the sword. It's a success. The members of the Yan clan were overjoyed. Mu Lin Shui. Yanfeng turned to Mu Lin Shui and Lin Feng. You can't disturb other people, shouted the teacher who thought highly of Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui. Right now was a crucial moment for them. Yanfeng looked upset, but then he glanced around and saw that it was a level 7 professor who had scolded him. He recalled his chi, quietly remembering that person for when he became stronger. It's getting intense, said Yanfeng's future teacher, smiling indifferently. I still think you will end up giving me your technique. Another one groaned coldly. Henchang Tian and Guqing Feng had succeeded too. They didn't manage to make a level 4 imperial weapon, but a level 3 imperial weapon was still rather good. Only Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui still have a chance at defeating Yanfeng now, thought the crowd. Mu Lin Shui was soaked in sweat. She looked exhausted. Lin Feng was helping her control the fire now. There were 3 of Lin Feng's clones around the cauldron, helping. Their cloud is not as vast as Yanfeng's, so even if they manage to make a level 4 imperial weapon, it still might not be as good as Yanfeng's, thought the crowd. Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui's weapon cloud was quite small and cyan in color. Chapter 1640. Ranking C Man Nen also succeeded. His wings were whistling with strength. With those wings, cultivators could travel at incredible speeds, not to mention their defenses would be amazing too. These were also a level 3 imperial weapon. Amongst the 4 geniuses, only Yanfeng had made a level 4 imperial weapon. Yanfeng's 9 weapon transformation technique was very special, and probably the only reason he succeeded. It seems that the champion has already been decided, thought the crowd. Lin Feng and Mu Lin Xue's weapon cloud still didn't look impressive enough. Lin Feng and Mu Lin Xue could still rank in the top 3 if they managed to make a level 4 imperial weapon, thought the crowd. 4 hours had passed already, which meant that they still had 4 hours to work with. Qing Ying had thought that 8 hours would be enough to make 3 or more weapons, but it seemed that making just 2 weapons in 8 hours was impossible. Congratulations, said a strong cultivator from Sword Mountain to the leader of the Yen clan. They already felt that Yen Feng had won. Hee, we knew this would happen. Yen Feng has never disappointed us, said the leader of the Yen clan happily. I wouldn't have thought that the champion would be Yen Feng, even I'm surprised, said Yen Feng's future teacher. Even though he talked that way, he clearly didn't mean it. His colleagues knew what kind of person he really was. The tournament is not over, so don't talk too fast, said the one who thought highly of Lin Feng. I can't wait to see what kind of weapon he'll make, said Yen Feng's future teacher, smiling coldly. He looked at Lin Feng and Mu Lin Xue. Finally, they were finishing the spear, and if they succeeded, they might have a level 4 weapon. Then they might still rank second. Lin Xue, let's start the condensation part, said Lin Feng. Mu Lin Xue nodded. The spear was already surrounded by destructive energies which were dashing to the sky. Finally, the spear rotated in the sky. They did it, it's a level 4 imperial weapon. The crowd looked at the weapon. It was different from Yen Feng's weapon, it was a pale white spear. They ranked second. Surprisingly, Yen Feng and Mu Lin Xue, who were at the center of the Mu clan and Yen clan's bet, ranked first and second. Thought the crowd. After the 4 geniuses and Lin Feng and Mu Lin Xue finished, the crowd turned to the others. Time passed and more of them finished their weapons, but most of them only made level 2 weapons. By now, the first 5 winners were already known. If the crowd wasn't wrong, the ranking list would be Yen Feng's team, then Mu Lin Xue's team, then Hen Chang Tian, then Gu Qingfeng, and then Si Man Nan. Of course, those who were the most impatient were the members of the Yen clan. They were certain that the 9-headed snake fire was theirs. Lin Xue, are you ready to join my clan? Asked Yen Feng, smiling indifferently. Mu Lin Xue glanced at him and smiled coldly. You're still dreaming? Hee, our clans have an agreement and you can't go against it. Try if you dare though, said Yen Feng, glancing at the clans. He knew that since Mu Lin Xue had ranked second, the Mu clan might have some ideas, so would have to put some pressure on them. Many members of the Mu clan had mixed feelings. They didn't know what to do. They couldn't go against the agreement, and after joining Goldfire Tower, Yen Feng would try to get his revenge against them. Lin Feng glanced at Yen Feng and frowned. He found Yen Feng ridiculous as he said indifferently, Yen Feng, since when are you a referee for the tournament? Yen Feng glanced at Lin Feng and frowned. I've never said that. Since you haven't, why do you already consider yourself as the champion of the tournament? The professors of Goldfire Tower haven't said anything concerning the ranking yet, said Lin Feng in a calm and serene way. Yen Feng was surprised, but he smiled at Lin Feng and said, do you think your weapon could be of higher quality than mine? Of course, said Lin Feng. Yen Feng smiled. He was amused, so he replied, I like your sense of humor. We'll see, said Lin Feng stubbornly. Mu Lin Xue's eyes twinkled as she looked at Lin Feng. Actually, she didn't know how powerful their weapon was. She didn't even know if it was better than Yen Feng's weapon, but Lin Feng seemed confident. That guy is really confident, I wonder why, said Yen Feng's future teacher, smiling in a cold way. Some time passed and finally, the 8 hours were over. Many people looked happy, while some looked desperate. The 7 professors in purple clothes all walked forwards at the same time. They had to discuss the ranking. If they didn't agree on something, the professor in the golden purple clothes would act as a referee. Everybody, let me tell you what I think. The 10th one should be him, do you agree? Said one of the professors, pointing at a young man in black clothes. The 6 others nodded in agreement. All right, so we agree, said the professor. Then he smiled at the young man and said, congratulations, you ranked 10th. You may take 3 steps forwards. Thank you, masters, said the young man nodding. He had ranked 10th, that was great. Chapter 1641, the champion. Many people were nervous. After all, those young people represented their groups in Goldfire City. After that, the professors also announced who had ranked 9th, 8th, 7th and 6th. When it was time to announce who had ranked 6th and 7th, the professors started to disagree. When this happened, if only one professor didn't agree, their opinion didn't count, but if 2 or more professors disagreed, then everyone had to reconsider. For those who had ranked between 6th and 10th, the professor in golden clothes didn't need to interject. With that, it was time to decide who had ranked 5th. Man Nen ranked 5th in my opinion. Do you all agree? Asked one of the professors in purple. Man Nen shivered. He obviously wasn't happy. I agree. I agree too. I think Man Nen should rank 4th. He made wings which can make a cultivator both extremely fast and defense-heavy. Said one of them. I think so too. He should rank 4th. Said another one. The professors couldn't agree again. Maybe those who had objected only thought highly of him because they wanted to recruit him. Maybe there was a connection between them and Man Na, just like Yen Feng had with his future teacher. Of course, maybe they really thought that Man Nen had done better than Gu Qingfeng. All right, we need someone else's opinion then, said the cultivator, turning to the 3 professors in golden red clothes. We all agree that Man Nen should rank 5th, said one of the professors in the golden red clothes. All right, said the professor in purple clothes, nodding. Since the professors in golden red clothes agreed, it was decided. Of course, if the 3 professors in the golden red clothes hadn't agreed, they would have needed the opinion of the professor in the golden purple clothes. The rules were fair, even if the professors had their personal opinions. Of course, they couldn't let the professor in golden purple clothes decide everything on his own. If he liked someone, then he might favor them just as these purple-clothed judges had. Man Nan was disappointed that he had only ranked 5th. The 4th one should be Gu Qingfeng. Do you all agree? Asked the professor. This time, everyone agreed. After all, Hen Changtian's tower was extraordinary. Besides, he had made it alone. Gu Qingfeng understood the skill that was required. The 3rd one had to be Hen Changtian. Even though he had made a weapon on his own, Yan Feng and Mu Linshue's team had each made level 4 imperial weapons, so Hen Changtian couldn't compete with them. Who's going to rank 2nd? Thought the crowd. They're high from the anticipation. They were almost sure that Lin Feng was going to rank 2nd and Yan Feng 1st, but since Lin Feng sounded so confident, they couldn't wait to hear what the professors had to say. All the members from the Yen clan stood up. The next sentence would be decisive. The members of the Mu clan also all stood up. You each made level 4 imperial weapons. Yen Feng's cloud was wider, which might mean that his weapon is of higher quality. However, Mu Linshue's weapon is strange. I can't understand it properly. It's probably because of the deployment marks. Show us the power of your weapons and I'll decide after, said the professor in purple clothes. No, Yen Feng's weapon is of better quality, so he is the champion. Just tell us what you think, and we can talk about it. Why make things so complicated? Said Yen Feng's future teacher. Actually, he was also curious. He didn't understand Lin Feng's deployment marks either. I want to understand the power of their weapons clearly. That's the only way to make a proper decision, said the professor. What do you think? It would be fair to see how powerful their weapons are first, said the professor who thought highly of Lin Feng and Mu Linshue. The others agreed, so they said, Yen Feng, you start first. All right. Yen Feng nodded and condensed cosmic energies in his hands which powered his sword. Attack! Shouted Yen Feng. His sword dashed to the skies, making the sky turn red. Then a terrifying blood strength fell, along with a furious, bloodthirsty dragon which was emitting large fire jettisons. Mu Linshue and her assistant, show us the power of your spear, said the professor to Lin Feng and Mu Linshue. I'll do it, said Lin Feng. He grabbed the spear firmly and slowly raised it to his shoulder. Then he shouted in a deep voice, Go! Bizizi! The spear shook and suddenly disappeared. Kacha! A destructive strength filled the sky. The spear instantly appeared in the sky, and it was still rising. An illusion? Surprisingly, the crowd had lost track of the spear before it had reappeared higher up in the sky. That weapon was very dangerous. It's hard to say what level of cultivator could be killed by it. Eventually, the spear came back to Lin Feng's hand. Then he turned to the judges and said, "My spear is incredible in terms of attack, speed, and illusion. It's better than his sword, and I'm sure that you must understand that now." The crowd was speechless. Lin Feng was saying that his spear was better than Yan Feng's sword in all aspects? Ridiculous! "You're talking nonsense," shouted Yan Feng furiously. "The cloud is a sign of quality, and yours wasn't as good. Yan Feng should rank first," said Yan Feng's future teacher indifferently. "I think that Mu Lin Shui and her assistant should rank first," said the teacher who had made a bet with him. "What do you think?" asked the professor in purple to the others. They had each made an incredible weapon, both a sword and a spear. Yan Feng's sword had created a better cloud, and it was incredible in terms of defense, seeing how it could summon a fire dragon. Lin Feng's weapon was incredibly dangerous. Its cloud wasn't very dense, but it was terrifying. "I think Yan Feng should win,"